It's good, Ralph.
Thank you. Okay. All right, good evening. At this time, we will reconvene the Wall Township Board of Education workshop meeting for Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smythe, roll call, please.
Okay, take a roll call. Mr. Gart.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
I am here.
Thank you. Mr. Krupa.
Present.
Ms. Mangan.
Here.
Mr. Nasser.
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo.
Here.
Ms. Stites.
Here.
Mr. Wondrak.
You're on mute, Ken.
Spacebar.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Agnesian.
Here. All right, thank you. Okay, at time we will start policy. Dr. Gleason? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm going to take the report.
Oh, you are? I'm sorry.
Thank you. In this report, of course, we've been doing this month to month here. Just as a little bit of a background, the board has a consulting service that provides two functions. First, it advises us when there have been changes to existing legislation that might result in updates to existing policies, and in some instances where new legislation is passed requiring that the board consider policy and/or regulations, those recommendations are made as well. But we've been working off of a list for several months now since I've been here of a series of policy alerts from the company. We have on the policy tonight second readings for several policies that we've discussed now related to domestic violence and the regulations for that, changes to the health and physical education, the administration of education and associated regulations with that, a supervision of construction policy, which is a revision to the existing policy, and revisions to the definition of the school day, and new policy or revised policy on the reporting of potentially missing or abused children. We have had conversations about these policies. We've run them by the administrative council. We've had some feedback from several individuals that have been incorporated into those policies, and they are ready tonight to be voted on for the second time in some part of the policy book. The new readings for tonight, one is a new policy. It comes across as two policies, but they are postnatal accommodations. One is a definition of what the policy requires. That's 3421.13, and 4421.13 is the same policy as it applies to a different category of personnel. This is a new policy that applies the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and the Federal Fair Labor Standards as they relate to nursing mothers being permitted, who are employees being permitted reasonable break times and private locations to express breast milk for their nursing children for up to 1 year after the child's birth. It requires that the school provide a physical location that is private, and that procedures related to the exempt and non-exempt categories of employees be developed as to the times during the day when that activity would be considered to be permissible. 4421.13 is the I won't say counter policy, but it's the same policy as it applies to non-certified staff. The other policy that we're looking at tonight for a first reading is policy 8210. It's an update to the existing school year policy. It will require that the annual approval of the school calendar and the school day further defined for shortened days. It requires notification of the board president of any unscheduled delayed openings or closures, and requires the submission of a school calendar by or on May 1st, and the circumstances under which the board can alter the approved calendar. And the last policy for first reading is policy R8220, and that's an update to the existing school closing policy. As you might imagine, there have been some changes to that, and details required with respect to notifications for closing school for an entire day, for initiating delayed openings and early dismissals. The only thing that's on the agenda is I put on for a discussion item is 0152, which is board officers. And that really just allows for the board to select its leadership either through written vote or a voice vote. My understanding is that the board has traditionally done it as a voice vote. If that's the direction you're going to continue in, then there'll be no necessary changes to that particular policy. But if there is some interest into conducting the selection of the board's officers through a written vote or written ballot, then there are some changes to that policy that would pertain to boards using that particular method. So that's what we're looking at for tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Comments?
Hey, Ralph,
Yes. Mr.
just a
Karts.
question. Dr. Cram, the policy on the voting for leadership within the board over the Zoom, if we have to have these meetings at various times through the year because of weather or what have you, that's considered a verbal vote, I would take it?
Yes.
Okay, let's clarify.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Krupa.
I just have a comment just because it doesn't necessarily always seem apparent to everybody, but these policies that come up are part of recommendation that the consultant Strauss Esme has on a scheduled basis for us to review and revise as a Board of Ed. The administration at different levels is involved in that review, makes recommendations. The skill set of some of the board members is also utilized. But as we've had some discussion informally, there'll be more things developing in light of the many new challenges that school districts are facing. And besides Strauss Esme, School Boards Association and other professional associations help us with that. So when people look at these policies, they should understand that we're not, arbitrarily throwing these out there. Sometimes they're in response to a current event, but obviously with current events, there's time that has to be given to developing a policy. So there will be things coming. And I just think it's helpful for people to know why we have these things on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. Does anybody have anything else in regards to any of the policies?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes.
On 8220, the school closings, I noticed that there was an elimination of the call chain requirement for the principal notifying staff. The ConnectEd system, if it goes down, is there a backup to notify everybody? Is there any redundancy in case there is an emergency closing?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Mr. Lee can answer it. We're lucky to have him here tonight.
So Blackboard Connect is a redundant system. We have ways, so if the online system is not accessible to us, there is a direct dial-in with a passcode that we will provide the new superintendent on July 1. So she'd be able to actually call into the system and relay a message as well. So they have multiple ways to communicate out.
Okay, and do we have the contact information for all of our staff stored someplace else as well?
Yes, all of that information is actually pulled from our human resource system. It is also stored inside of another system that then uploads up to Blackboard Connect. So we do have contact information in multiple areas.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Lee, just to clarify too, that's an off-site server. So if the power went down in Wall Township, that would not be affected, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, Blackboard is a cloud-based system that allows communication. They have redundant locations. So even if they lose connection in their facility in New York, they have other locations that will be able to do the dialing as well.
Okay, thank you. And could you also make me co-host on the meeting? Put your tech skills to work. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, Ms. Megan?
So I'm looking at the policy 3421 and the postnatal natal accommodations. It doesn't reference this, but I believe that expressed milk has to be refrigerated. Maybe we take it one step further and put that into the policy that that the employee will have the opportunity to have expressed milk refrigerated in a climate controlled or like nurse's station, just so that way there's a guarantee that it's stored properly.
Yeah, I'll double check that. I think it's in the specifications for the room where they would be able to go through the process. I think there's certain specific things there for electricity, and there may be refrigeration there, but if not, yeah, we could use like a nurse.
Yeah, it says the chair and not about the bathroom. They're, not to use a bathroom, the chair and electricity outlet, but nothing in regards to an actual refrigeration process.
Right.
So it might be just one step
Good point.
further.
Good point. We'll add that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to curriculum and instruction. Dr. Gleason, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Agnizio. We are underway with plans for our summer bridge program. I brought to the board a introductory update on what our plans were. We are now well underway. Letters will go out to parents of students who were identified by their teachers. In K-5, students may be recommended, students who are recommended will receive instruction in both ELA and math. And then in grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12, students may be recommended for either or both subjects, ELA or math. And in math, we're talking about Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, as well as general math in grades 6, 7, and 8, as well as integrated modern algebra at the high school level. The program right now is a virtual program. It will be held beginning July 27th and run for 4 weeks through the summertime. We have a total of 579 students who were recommended, which represent approximately 17% of the student body. And tomorrow, letters will be sent to parents, letting them know that their child has been recommended, letting them know what the format of that class will be, which will be an entirely, it's a live format for an introductory lesson. And then the teacher will have live small group lessons throughout that 2-hour period. So the student will be receiving 3 days a week during that program, live instruction with the teacher. We're asking for parents to RSVP in the Google form by June 17th. And then depending upon how many students are going to participate in the program, we will then post for the teachers and begin training teachers. And the program will start, as I said, in July. We are going to be funding this program through the CARES Act fund or the ESSER fund, Elementary and Secondary Relief Act. And the program is, again, one of the allowable uses of the new Federal CARES Act grant that allows us to provide summer programming for students who may have some skill deficits as a result of school closure. So we will be funding the summer program through that grant, as well as the curricular resources needed for those teachers. And the other summer program that I shouldn't say program, but a summer curricular piece that we're providing for all families in elementary. It was actually recommended by one of our parents back a couple of meetings ago, and we think it was a great idea, making sort of universal units of learning available over the summer in ELA and math in grades K through 5. So we do have teachers writing curriculum. They will provide 18 individual lessons in ELA and 18 individual lessons in math. And any student can access those lessons if a parent feels that their child needs just some extra summer work over the summertime, and they may not have been recommended for the summer program. So we will have Learning for All available in the summertime, particularly at the elementary level. Any questions on the summer program?
Dr. Gleason?
Yes.
This is Russell. The 400, the ELA program that you mentioned, 479 people you said, or students being, is this a one-time effort because of the circumstances, or was this done in previous summers? And if it was done, what's the comparison of kids, so-called qualifying?
This is the first time that we're offering a summer remediation program, and it was required that we analyze deficit gaps or skill gaps for students, and funding was provided. So we don't have a baseline from prior years. Any other program that we've run in the summer has been a Title I program over at the middle school, and that program is targeted only for students who are struggling to master the standards throughout the year, and they may participate in Title I programs. This program addresses any student that may have shown some decline in student achievement when we went into school closure. So they might have been doing just fine in the beginning of the school year and been a really strong student, and then as a result of school closure, for whatever circumstances or just the learning environment itself, the teacher identified a decline in student learning. So it's different than anything that we've offered before in the summer, and the allowable uses or target population is a little more global than what we've offered in the summer before. And the 579, just to clarify, that's for ELA and math, and that's students in K through 11. Their prior year, this current year that they're in right now, kindergarten through grade 11. We are not offering to our seniors. Obviously, they would not be coming back to us in August, but we are remediating for grades K through 11.
And the last question would be this notification of recommendation would be a surprise to parents, or it's been hinted at through communication to the teacher and their struggling child, or kind of where's that at?
So I've been communicating on a regular basis, as you know, with parents on the weekly updates. So parents were aware that we would be providing a summer remediation program. I also provided notice at our board meeting, although not as many parents may have heard that message, but they have heard that message through the weekly updates that I send out. I would imagine that through communication with parents in the virtual learning world, that they would have some idea that maybe their child has not successfully mastered the standards for the year, as many won't in this virtual learning environment. Teachers have done a great job with communicating with parents. So I don't think that it would necessarily come as a surprise. We may have a situation where a parent thought that their child was doing just fine, and we'll address those situations as they come along. But I think teachers have done a really good job with letting parents know how students are doing during this time. And then, of course, we've had report cards that also indicate where they are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dr. Gleason, it's Adam.
Hello, Adam.
I don't know if this is a question for you or Dr. Cram, but with regards to the special education programs, has that been discussed? I know we're going to have to make up we have compensatory obligations that we're going to have to deal with, and we still don't know necessarily what the summer is going to look like. Has that been discussed, and can you just give us a quick update?
Sure. And that has been a moving target, but we've had to make plans accordingly with the guidance that we've had. And the county deal both at the county level and the state level, they have recommended that we are in virtual learning environments and plan for virtual learning for ESY. I know that that's been a point of frustration for parents of students with special needs, because we know that is not ideal. But of course, as educators and the Board of Education, to bring back, in some cases, our most fragile population in a untested environment, potentially having to wear masks and social distancing and things that aren't really realistic, in that setting, I think is not feasible. So we've moved ahead with plans for a virtual ESY. Parents were sent letters of invitation quite a while ago, and all of those plans have been solidified. I spoke with Mrs. Duffy, our Director of Special Services, several weeks ago, and they were getting a pretty healthy enrollment. I was, curious if we would have a less than, robust enrollment with being that it was virtual, but I don't have the exact numbers. I can get that, but they had a pretty healthy enrollment comparable to what they've had in the past. But I do know through some emails that I've been copied on from parents that they understand that our hands are tied right now, but they of course are hoping that something will change and that students would be able to be provided an in-person. With regard to compensatory services, at this point, we're not sure what we're looking at fully with compensatory services to be remediated when students return. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of aspects of special education that we really have to look at. This CARES Act can also fund some of those pieces of compensatory education. So we'll be looking really closely at that and working with Mrs. Duffy as we watch, the numbers sort of unfold and what we're going to be required to provide with compensatory education or services.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next agenda item is school reopening. It's a large agenda item that we don't have, as you probably are well aware, very little guidance. Each week we work with the county superintendents and our county executive superintendent, looking at the guidelines as they stand in the moment, as well as looking at states that have reopened to see what they've done well and what those state agencies have allowed for. And the state is asking that we begin preparing very preliminary, what they're calling multi-pronged plans or various scenarios, so that we can sort of plug those scenarios in and then fluidly shift to another scenario if the health data begins to decline or improve. So some of the scenarios, Dr. Cram, Dr. Handerhan, our administrative team, we've begun to have preliminary discussions over the past 2 weeks, have been looking at, we know that students it would be highly unlikely that we would be allowed to return to school as we knew it in September. We don't know what those numbers will look like in terms of how many students will be allowed per square footage, looking at square footage of classrooms, looking at common spaces, how many students would be allowed, or if they would be allowed in a lunchroom or a gym. So we have lots of different scenarios that we have to look at. But the first thing we have to look at is how do we bring in a modified number of students on any given day? So we did explore preliminarily split session, which would allow students to come to school each day for a shortened period of time. That poses considerable challenges, both with staffing. Usually that would involve a longer school day. And as we know, we're bound by a collective bargaining agreement. It also poses considerable challenges with transportation and being able to manage a greatly increased number of runs through the day. So that is not really an attractive situation. One situation that we are looking at more closely is an AB schedule. And I won't be able to give you all the specifics of that, but many districts are looking at the AB in which they split every class or course into 2 groups, and they come on campus on their specified day if they're an A group, and they are at home in asynchronous virtual learning on the B day. So that of course provides us little to no challenge with transportation. It brings us probably closer into what we think may be some of the anticipated guidelines for numbers of students. And of course, if we have to shift back entirely to virtual learning, depending on who you listen to, if we have a second wave during flu season and we have to shift back to virtual learning, I think we have learned to do that rather well, and we'll make sure that we have digital resources and the devices in place this time, so those aspects of virtual learning will not be stumbling blocks. Those were, as you know, things we had to address very quickly and on an ongoing basis. So we'll be working with also part of the CARES money, as well as our local budget, with providing enough Chromebooks for all students, and also looking at digital platforms that will allow our teachers, if they have to go to completely to virtual again, or part of the time, to be able to continue to use those virtual platforms. So as we get more guidance and we're able to distill some of these plans down, we'll be providing the board with more information, and of course, parents with more information. We're well aware that all of these plans, short of bringing all students back 5 days a week, leave many of our parents, particularly at the elementary level, with childcare issues. And as we know, we are held to the guidelines of the governor's orders and the CDC recommendations. And but we are aware that this will pose many challenges, and we're committed to trying to think outside the box and look at ways that we can do this. One of the things that I've mentioned in the updates to parents, and I've talked to the board about, is we want to convene some focus groups in July, perhaps mid to late July, early August at the latest, in which we talk to all of our stakeholders and we find out, you know, what really worked for them. We hear from lots of parents that their children thrived in the virtual environment. In some cases, they felt they thrived better in the virtual environment they did in the school environment, and that can be the case at times. And then what were the challenges in the virtual environment, and what will be some of the challenges with these scenarios as we go back to school. So we'll be asking for input from our school community and stakeholders in those sort of lessons learned and looking at school reopening focus groups. Questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Sounds good.
With the Chromebooks, and I'm not criticizing anybody. I just want to know, we gave out the Chromebooks. We budget for the Chromebooks. Some of the Chromebooks were broken or things happened. I get it. But I'm thinking for the F&F committee that they have a good handle. They get information, and it may not be you. I don't know who is the person that's going to do an audit or an inventory and report this, because it's going to have to be budgeted. If we're missing, plus we have a plan to replace Chromebooks. So somebody's got to bring that all together so that we know what we have to do to support those programs, because I don't think this is going away.
Absolutely.
I think this is, you know, the future.
Mr. Wondrak, I couldn't think of a better segue into the next portion of our agenda. That's exactly what we're going to be talking. It's like you set it up for us. That was perfect. Thank you.
No, before you go on though,
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I think it's really important because I felt your heart, Lisa, right there in what you were talking about. And I really appreciate that, because I know it's not only your heart, it's everybody's heart in the district that's been working so hard. The principals, the teachers, the other administrators, and the parents. You know, in times of stress, we don't always show our best side. So I'm not apologizing for any of the stress that people cause, but I am speaking as a parent with children in the school and as a board member that I think you guys have done a great job in being proactive and even open. As you mentioned earlier, we got an idea from a parent. So if parents are on listening and seeing our meeting, please continue to send that constructive feedback and ideas. One thing I've learned from my parents is, you know, don't complain unless you're going to present a solution. So, and that's not a threat, that's a request. So two heads are better than one if they are both cabbage, another for my parents. So I just wanted to say that because you really touched on two things there. One, what we've been doing, what the results of that are. Two, what are we going to do? And I think that is, probably the more pressing concern for people right now. There's a couple teachers on this board. We know that good teaching in the fall, whatever it looks like, they're going to start from where the children are anyway. Parents, you hear me? What I'm saying? That's good teaching. You start from where the children are. So we don't have that information. And I guess the reason I'm speaking to this also, besides your heart, Lisa, is that at the county meeting, this is all of what was said has been echoed repeatedly by the county superintendent and the other numerous districts in Monmouth County. So as long as we can stay ahead of the curve, pun intended, getting, those meetings, those, focus groups earlier than better, than later, because they're going to drop the hammer on us at some point. And thank you, Ken, for the bit about the Chromebook, because I just had to send out one about my son's Chromebook.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. The 579 students, those do not include students with an IEP and for ESY?
We have students who were recommended that they could be an ICR student, in-class resource students. Most are not ESY students because they have been provided either a 4 or 6 week program. If they've been provided for that, they typically would not be participating. We wouldn't exclude a student if we feel that if the teacher felt that the student could participate in ESY and then also participate in the 4 week, because they'll run they're back to back. So, but we have some students who are in 6 week ESY that would conflict with the 4 week program. So, obviously the ESY is part of their IEP. That has to be the goal. And the summer bridge program or remediation program is something supplemental. So we have to make sure that we satisfy the ESY program first.
Okay, and then for services, I noticed, and this kind of goes back to back with our next tie-in, but do we outsource for OTPT and speech services and BCBAs?
So we have a blend. So we have some in district as district employees, and then we do have some consultants.
Okay. Are they implementing services at this time and continue to do so over the summer?
I believe that once we were permitted to go to telemedicine or telehealth, we began to provide services. I think that the other part of that is, were those services sufficient to service the students as per their IEP? We don't know that. And that's where we'll again have to look at, as you know, Erin, with compensatory services that we'll be looking at, a number there that we're not sure yet.
Are we going to be making up any missed services that occurred during the year over the summer to fulfill the obligations of the IEPs?
That would, of course, depend on, if you're talking about live, that will all depend upon guidelines.
Right.
So we don't have an answer for that right now. So we will, if we're operating in the here and now, everything's still virtual and telehealth. But, as this changes weekly, daily, that could change later in the summer.
Okay. And do we have a BCB on staff, or is it a BCB outsourced? Is that the hybrid as well?
Yeah, I believe that we definitely have one BCBA on staff, district employee. I believe that we had 2, but I don't know that for sure if they're both district employees, but we definitely have one on staff.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Russell, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Dr. Gleason, I applaud the effort to focus group and continue to get feedback. As Angie said, constructive criticism is always helpful, as is any type of feedback from those who became teachers this last 3 months, right? The parents and co-opt with our teachers. I guess I would ask you to accelerate your game plan a little bit. I don't think getting focus groups together, and I know everybody's condensed for time, I get it, but I don't think we're going to be able to gather information effectively, process it, and implement changes if we're waiting until August. I just think that's an extremely late, and I know there's other circumstances, but I'd like us to try to be more aggressive in that approach because, school's winding down now for many. I have two teenagers, and unfortunately, they've checked out several weeks ago. And so, why couldn't we do it sooner than later, while it's still on parents' minds, and then we have time to create a report on what worked and what we need to change. Very simple, 3 bullet points, 5 bullet points, what we're going to do better, and present that to the community at some point in August. It's just a thought. I don't expect you to respond, but just to think about it. Questions about teacher training over the summer. The Global Online Learning Academy is a tremendous asset. I don't know if we're doing anything with any organizations outside of our own public school network, but to partner with some great organizations to get credentialing for teachers to create online learning and so on and so forth. I'm curious to know at some point in the future, maybe even offline, a report from you about what it is that we're doing with the teachers. If you don't want to comment tonight, that's fine. What are we doing to measure student mental health after all this? This has been a real kick in the face for a lot of people, unfortunately, both parents and students. And how are we measuring that? What are we doing to, I have one student in my family a son who's very, very academically gifted, and he is just fed up with this type of learning. I don't know what that means for September. I'm curious to know what the trends are, what the discussions are. And then my other question would be about the flexibility of scheduling. So we're going to try to put a certain group of kids in advanced algebra, let's say, or geometry or whatever, and maybe half of them don't belong in there because we misread where they were in the process, and how advanced they should be versus how advanced they really are. Are we going to be much more flexible in how we place kids and how we move kids around in that first marking period to get it right than maybe we've been in the past?
I'd like to address just a couple of your items, Russell. The global online learning, I think I'll note that down. I'd like to check into that. We do have a community member that is a corporate virtual trainer. And while it's a different audience than our teachers with students, what her strength is teaching tips and strategies to teach effectively in a virtual environment. So that community member is offering some PD for all teachers. We have 3 workshops set up in July before they begin training. And then I'll be doing a second training for the teachers on the following day. Also working within the instructional framework, but I absolutely think it's worth looking into some other professional development because, as you say, this isn't going away, and we need to make sure that teachers feel effective in this teaching methodology, and it's very different than teaching in the classroom. Measures for mental health is a really important piece, and it is part of one of the, I believe, 6 indicators that the department is expecting all districts to have a plan for. So we are working on that with, as well as the other aspects of school reopening, such as operations and governance and return to instruction. Mental health and wellness is a very, very big item. So as we talk further on that and start to look at what are best practices and how do we capture those students who really became disengaged or have some anxiety around coming back. There are a lot of different scenarios that we have to look at, and that is absolutely on our radar. Flexibility of scheduling, absolutely. It's not business as usual. We have students coming from a very different background of learning over the past several months here. And while we would normally have placement criteria, that placement criteria is based upon evidence of their learning in the school setting, and we don't have that now. So we have to be both flexible in terms of students and parents who think that their child would place into a class and we don't have evidence of that, giving a child maybe some flexibility to do that, and then vice versa. So we're looking at a lot of new scenarios here, and I think flexibility is key so that we really learn from this and we get kids where they need to be. That first 6 weeks of school is going to be for everybody, not just Wall Township, but every school district in the country that has kids coming back is going to be understanding, as Mr. Krupa said, where kids are and not where we expect them to be, no expectations, getting some really good baseline data, checking in on mental health, getting kids the services that they need, and then really trying to hope and have a plan in place that in October, we're beginning to look at the scope and sequence of what curriculum is. But we really have to bring kids back and see where they are and address a variety of factors beyond just academics.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason. My only last comment would be is one thing that we might be able to try to do is try to find some readings on schools in Germany and the European states that have already gotten ahead of us on this and see what their trials and tribulations have been. I know I've read a few, and it's not a wonderful story to tell, but nonetheless, if we can avoid the same glitches, it might be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Russell.
Dr. Gleason?
Yes.
So you, when you were talking about the A/B type schedule, will the teachers do we have the technology where the teachers will be able to teach and stream out to the students at home so they can be part of the actual class, but virtually?
That's one of the things that we're discussing, and Mr. Lee is working with us. While Chromebooks can record lessons that they're doing at home right now, we're talking about a different scenario if they're in a classroom and providing real-time instruction to one group and the other group can be potentially being streamed instruction. That might require something different like tracking cameras, and potentially we would just be recording the teacher during the direct instruction time. That's a different technology. Mr. Lee, do you want to weigh in on that item?
Yeah, well, during this time, some of the things that have been identified as ways that teachers can teach. I had an opportunity to sit in on some of the kindergarten teachers who their whole world got turned upside down during this because a lot of their class is the interaction with those children and their classroom and the structure within their classroom and moving from the front of the room to the side of the room and going to the ABC wall. And enter technology in the idea of why couldn't a teacher be in the classroom with a tracking camera and actually teaching their lesson inside the classroom, and the students are home actually looking at the classroom that they're familiar with, and the teacher has access to all of their resources and tools that they normally have versus, now they're home, now they're scrambling for whatever they need, the construction paper that's under their child's bed or something along those lines. Now it's right there for them and access to them. This requires a bit more of an infrastructure change, adding additional cameras that, are not exactly the most cost-effective cameras, but I'm looking at various alternatives. Even if we were to set up a single room for teachers to be able to at least record lessons in this type of fashion could even be beneficial. In the short term, web cameras with the ability to record lessons, and trying to get something inside the classrooms sooner than later than, while we put together the plan for what this could look like going forward.
Any idea how much something like that would cost per classroom?
So the cameras, depending upon the quality of the camera, is around $500 to $1,000 per camera. And then we have to add in network capabilities and professional development because this becomes a very unique scenario for teaching. We would really have to work through this in order to do this correctly. So that it's not just a camera that's sitting there not being utilized. It would really have to be something that would be planned, thought, and implemented, with the correct professional development, more than likely some teacher leaders in the building who are, really assisting in the implementation of this type of stuff in order to really change and turn the classroom into a true interactive classroom, not just a whiteboard that a kid can touch, but now the classroom is really interactive, that you can bring in speakers, you can turn cameras to different angles and really, integrate, lessons and make them much more, active.
Thank you. Anybody, any other questions for Dr. Gleason?
Yes, one other question. What we talked about before, but I'm just interested for Mr. Lee. I don't need an answer now, but I'm wondering if the Chromebooks, is there another model, or is there something else that we need in the high school that's different from the intermediate school, that's different from the grammar school? Because we had this conversation several years ago, and we all agreed on the model that we were going to take. And I just, that has to be a part of this. What do we need to be doing into the future, and how do we, well, we know what we have to do. We have to integrate it into the budget. So that's what I'm after. All right, thank you. Yeah, I don't want an answer now. I just putting that out.
So can we just segue now right into the next agenda item?
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce why you're here tonight. I've been, as you know, I've been meeting with all the different departments, and we've been looking at the long-term, some of the changes that the district may want to consider to have it operate a little bit more efficiently. And of course, a lot of it has to do with trying to get the individual schools and the individual departments to work as a single system. One of the areas that I looked at initially, and I spoke to Mr. Lee about it, was where the district was with respect to its strategic planning for technology, since, as we've been talking about, whether it's the current school operation or plans for the reopening of school in the fall, technology is going to play a considerable role. I found out from Joe that he had been working on a strategic plan. He had bits and pieces of a strategic plan, and one of his goals was to pull it all together. And I encouraged him to do that during the weeks and months that I've been here, with the idea that we would make a presentation in June, not for any action by the board, but just to give you an illustration of how some of these issues need to be approached strategically.
That's
So
what
that
I'm
you make
after.
sure you have the right equipment, so that you know that you have
Yes.
the money in the budget that you're going to need. And we take the lessons that have been learned from the long-term reliance on the district's infrastructure and bring it forward, so that we are better prepared in the event that we have to do this again, and certainly better prepared to use technology across the board in the educational process. So with that background, Joe, I'm going to let you talk with them a little bit about what you've been working on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So over the course of time, the state often required a 3-year technology plan. Back in 2016, the plan became optional, but it was also a big shift towards the educational standards and more educational technology. So the idea of a 3-year technology plan, as it was 15 years ago, really has changed. 15 years ago was about your infrastructure. Are you going to be able to have the infrastructure and all of the budgetary terms that go around that? But now that the state has kind of shifted away from that, a lot of districts don't really have the mandate to create such a plan anymore. So one of the things that has really been brought to the forefront, especially during the pandemic, is that Wall Township does need a plan detailing where we are and where we need to go. And that's the bottom line of the strategic plan. Like I said, they were always 3-year plans. Technology is ever changing. We're having a discussion, every single time. Now we're adding cameras into this. Well, if we were writing a 3-year plan, would we have thought about that 2.5 years ago? Probably not. So now, a technology plan, to me and a lot of districts, it's now more of an evergreen plan. It's a living document. It is annually reviewed. It is not something that is just a 3-year plan. Basically, the plan addresses the current structure, where we are, everything that we have, from wireless security, cybersecurity, Chromebooks, teacher devices, what the classroom looks like, to policies. And then we interject where we think the district should be going and what direction it should be taking. And in between all of that is the roadmap on how to get there. So one of the things that we, really want to look at is, we can basically start off with the pandemic response. So the pandemic response, was a huge shift to virtual learning. Basically, the entire district and all parents jumped into the world that I live in. This is my world. I've been doing Zoom meetings long before, a lot of people even knew what Zoom was. Given the previous budget cycles that you guys have approved over the years with the influx of Chromebooks, the one-to-one to the high school, all of that work really kind of showed during this time, because in the past, even as much as a year ago, we were moving carts from the intermediate school to the high school just to do park testing. Now we had a one-to-one in the high school. So when the shift to virtual learning came in, that money was not for naught. That money went to good use, because now the students had access to their devices right then and there. Intermediate, one-to-one. Now the kids were able to now take their devices home, even though they normally carry them. We still had the devices ready to go. Our gap at this time was the K-1 environment. They were iPads and they had stations. So that is one of the areas that will be definitely being looked at in the immediate future, is the K-1 world, and trying to get a one-to-one. The recommendation that I would have is that the district should be a one-to-one with assigned devices from K through 12. The devices can remain in school, but with the ability to be able to take them home at a moment's notice, if need be. If a child has homework online and needs to take it home, they can take them home. One of the shifts is that since we were using Chromebooks and we were in this Google world, so to speak, we had immediate access to online video conferencing, Google Meet, Google Hangouts. We then, because of some of the work that we've done in the past with a program called Clever for single sign-on, that then allowed us to use Zoom for the added functionality that Zoom had. And here we are doing a Zoom meeting for our Board of Ed meetings as well, with the full functionality of webinars. So a lot of this stuff was already in place and ready to go, because of the work and the approvals that were done by the Board of Ed to date. So as we look at that, some of the lessons learned, the Chromebooks were very important tools. The Google environment really allowed us to move quickly and move into the Google Classroom, where teachers can post assignments, students can get into those Google Classrooms, see the assignments, and be able to do their work and submit the work. One of the things that stood out to the tech department during this was a more of a need for some professional development on some of these basic tools. Google Classroom, we did have quite a few teachers asking about Google Classroom, and I was working with the building specifically trying to get some additional how-tos out to some of these teachers. The need for the assigned one-to-one for the district, so that we can assign. Right now we have a lot of paper of Chromebooks that have been assigned. But we are currently in the process of inputting that all into our asset management so that we know who has what and where they are. Because our asset management system allows us to do a check-in and check-out process. So all the paperwork is being currently entered in. One of the other things that jumped out was the various applications for the district, beyond even just the curricular applications, but even the tech applications. I steal this from another superintendent in Monmouth County, but he always references a box that he likes to work in. And here in Wall Township, one of the things that I really would like to see coming is a technology box. These are the applications. This is the infrastructure. This is the hardware that we support. No questions asked. So we had options to use WebEx. We've had options to use GoToMeeting. We had options to use so many of these other video platforms. Zoom approached us. We were able to integrate all of our staff quickly and easily into Zoom. It made the most sense. My department was able to learn it quickly and be able to support it. And you were able to hold your meetings via Zoom without any hesitations. So having this box so that, it is easier for the technology department to support the district on a whole. So there becomes consistency across the district, not, this type of Chromebook, and we have 5 different versions of a Chromebook in a building. Some of the other things that we've done. So, Mr. Wondrak, when you reference about the Chromebooks and budgetary and replacing and things along those lines, over the last couple of years, my department basically gutted the district and redistributed all the Chromebooks. So the purchases that have been made for specific buildings. They haven't been made to just replace Chromebooks. At this point, part of the technology plan, you will see that I can tell you what you will need to budget for, what building in 2026 at this point, because of how everything has been purchased and how we have done. In September of 2021, West Belmar's building will ultimately need to be reviewed because the Chromebooks go end of Google life in 2021, and it's usually about another year after that the Chromebooks will last, they'll work, but then by 2022 we should really look to replace them, because we will find that applications that are coming out won't run on the type of device that we currently have. So that plan is already in the district. It's being placed into the technology plan that I will be sharing with you all at some point to review. But one of the things that also really jumped out during this is, and this is a prime example. Here we are talking about a technology plan, and the technology plan is tucked under the curriculum agenda. Not that I don't like Lisa or anything, but there's a committee for everything. There's a committee for F&F, there's a committee for curriculum, there's a committee for policy, there's a committee for public relations, but there really is no committee for technology. One of the things that I feel that this district really could use is an IT governance committee, a committee that it's not necessarily a decision-making committee, but a committee that can have real discussion about the technology of the district, and not just educational technology. We're talking cybersecurity. I've had staff reaching out to me regarding attempts to log into their accounts from Malaysia recently. I just spoke to a parent today regarding an attempt to log into her child's son from Malaysia. We have phishing scams. We've had ransomware in this district. We have a security system that, needs to be addressed as well. And to have a committee to be able to really have these conversations, because I'll be honest, these are not small ticket items that would need to be replaced. When we're looking at replacing a wireless system we have approximately 300 wireless access points in the district at a cost of around $1,000 per access point. We've got a $300,000 price tag right there, and that's just wireless access. Not to mention security cameras, same type of scenario. We want to add cameras, they break, now we have another budget line item of repair coming in. So being able to have an IT governance, one of the other aspects would be when we want to bring in new technologies, having a change control process that can really kind of go through an IT governance to look at its impact and what type of things we will need to do to address those added things that are coming in. Vaping sensors. Most people don't even think that a vaping sensor that detects smoke runs on the network. Well, now we have to run network lines. We have to ensure that we have enough ports to run those lines. But they're a vaping sensor. So, we get pulled into a meeting at the last minute. So we do need to be brought in a little bit sooner to have those conversations. Our goal is not to say no. Our goal is to, make sure that what we're purchasing, what we're doing is correct and will function the way that we expect it to function in our environment. What I would look at with an IT governance would be a superintendent, a board member or two, representatives from all buildings interested in technology, preferably teacher leaders with an interest in technologies that we can have real conversations, and representatives from the various departments, even the business office, curriculum, things like that, where we're having real conversation regarding the technology of the district and the roadmap. And one of the first tasks, if we were to start this IT governance committee sooner than later, would really be to really review this strategic plan and lay out the roadmap and start prioritizing all of the things that are being outlined within the strategic plan.
Thank you, Joe. What Joe just ran through with you is, I guess the culmination of conversations we've been having in the last couple of weeks, but I think it's an illustration as to how the board can start looking at some of these issues, like I said, from a more systemic perspective. which has two advantages. One, it can lead to cost efficiencies because you'll be sure that you're buying the right equipment to accomplish what you want to have done, and it'll make a qualitative improvement in the way technology is used throughout the district. So I think it's an important idea, and it was a perfect time for us to begin to look at that, because the system was tested, and it was tested very, very thoroughly over the past several months. I don't think anybody expected to be in the virtual environment for the length of time. And while having the equipment and having the teachers familiar with the equipment is a big part of it and allowed you to very quickly move into it, we didn't realize all of the stresses that would develop over the long term. And so I was asking Joe over the time that I've been here to kind of keep notes on that and say, you know, what are we learning? What could we have done better? And what do we need to do better? And of course, the next question is, you know, how do we pace that going forward so that we have the equipment that we need? We're not breaking the bank in terms of investments that need to be made. It can be something that can be spread over multiple years if you're looking far enough ahead. And his idea of you having some kind of a technology committee, I think makes perfect sense, because it'll get all of the participants together around the table, the people with the ideas as to how they would like to use it, the people around the table who know what's involved in using the technology the way it's being recommended that it be used. And you've got representatives from the board there who can really make the decisions and begin to make the necessary financial planning. So I would encourage you, the plan's not done, it's almost done. I don't think we'll have it before the end of the month, but Dr. Handerhan is also aware of the work that Joe has been doing. She and I have talked about it, and I think we're of one mind in terms of where the district may need to go. And it ranges from, you know, simple examples, you know, like one of the first things I came across was when I first got here and we were distributing computers, and, you know, Lisa and her husband were very graciously running around the district, you know, giving out computers. I know Erin Embaum was doing the same thing for some of her students. The elementary principal was doing the same thing. And I, you know, as an outsider, I came back and said, wait, it doesn't make sense. You know, we've got custodial people and transportation people and technology people who this is their wheelhouse. They ought to be the ones who are, you know, given the information about who needs a computer, and we should be able to transport those instead of having professionals who have other things to do running around delivering, aside from the danger involved in having them out and doing that. I mean, just the time that was invested in it. It's just something more complicated. Like within the last few days, we've been getting recommendations for, you know, cameras to be used in the classroom. And of course, my question to Joe was, well, you know, are these the right cameras? Yeah, it's great that somebody saw a camera on, you know, Amazon for $99 and it promised to do A, B, and C, but does it really do that? And is it going to be able to be integrated into the existing infrastructure? It's going to create a lot more work for us to really use it effectively. So it makes sense for the tech department to be drawn into these conversations early on. And with bigger issues, like we're talking about, just maintaining the Wi-Fi system and some of the heavier investments that are going to have to be made in the overall infrastructure of the district, it's important that the board be there as well, so that they come to understand what the issues are, what the costs are going to be, and they can work with the rest of the board to plan for again, economies of scale and a reasonable investment in technology on a regular basis to ensure that we stay in the position that we're in right now. And that is being able to keep up with the probability of us having to maintain, at least partially, in a virtual environment. There's so many things that we've learned that we can do with this, that it's not going to be a pandemic that's necessarily going to cause us to increase the use of technology. There's all kinds of possibilities with inclement weather, short-term closings, long-term illnesses for, excuse me, for students. I mean, there's so many applications. The potential of this has shown itself to be useful in so many applications that I think it's going to be an increasingly important part of the board's conversations and its budgeting. Thank you.
So, just two things. So when is this? I think the first thing we need to do is we need to see the plan and look at it and digest it. So, I mean, it's been, a couple of years in the works, right? So, I mean, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I mean, all our technology decisions are education based. So, there's been a lot of wish list items over the years, but everything comes down to what we actually need to educate the students. So if we need more wireless hotspots, then we have to put them in the schools. If we need more Chromebooks because we have more kids, that we have to buy the Chromebooks. So, I mean, I personally, I think curriculum is a very important part of technology. I mean, especially in this day and age, they go hand in hand. I mean, talking about, you know, some other things that I think that's a little different, but I would say probably 99% of the stuff we do is based on the curriculum. What we're trying to teach and how we accomplish it with the technology we have or the technology we don't have. So I think we really need to see the plan, what we're looking at going into the future, and then digest that and then see if there's a need for another committee or a different direction to go. Russell, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Ralph. Joe, a couple things just maybe to think about or either answer tonight if you can. Technology directors are very collaborative across the county and state. I know that. If I were to put you on the spot, you know, tell me the 3 schools that are doing it the best right now that you would say we should go take a look at.
So I came from South Brunswick, and I'm still very friendly up there. They are doing some really good things up there. The Rumson Fairhaven, and I'm not just saying that because that's where Dr. Handerhand's coming from. I know those guys over there very well, the network admin and their director of tech. They do a lot of really good things over there with technology and the process. You know, and Asbury Park actually does a lot of good things, you know, and you don't usually realize at Asbury Park. There's a lot of good, because we do have meetings for the county tech directors. We all do get together. Marlboro is also another good district that does a lot with the Google world, especially. Their Marlboro superintendent is 2 feet in the deep end in the Google world and does presentations on Google itself. And the integration of into the curriculum as well. So, you know, there's 4 districts that I would absolutely look at, and all different types of districts too.
Thank you. Again, you kind of hinted at it, but you know, and maybe this will be in your plan more, and maybe you don't want to answer it right now, but I guess I was just looking for a quick answer. I would imagine we're underfunded for technology in your eyes, correct?
Yes, to a point.
Okay.
We try to, you know,
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You know, we do various things, but then it becomes a bigger conversation as we really start to look at some of the bigger projects that start to get as the technology ages out. Because I do agree with Ralph that a lot of what we do is about what we, you know, teaching the kids. But when we look at a core switch that is aged out, you know, and that core switch is the main component that runs the entire district, and all buildings connect to that. And, you know, when I first got here, we were having power issues, and that core switch would go down on a regular basis. And therefore, none of this technology works when our core switch goes down.
So I guess my next question would be staffing. Are we understaffed in your eyes?
In my eyes, in the technology department, I am going to say yes, but at current, one of the other things that is in the plan as well is to really define the roles and responsibilities of the technology department. Currently, I have 3 members that are considered computer technicians, but 1 guy is specifically handling network, and 2 other guys are serving bigger roles than just a computer technician. They handle some of the projects. They handle for the different levels. When we were doing the 1-to-1 rollout for the high school, as much as I was involved, David Commander, you know, really helped integrate that with the building. So, you know, as a computer technician, you think of a computer technician as a break fix individual, but then we start rolling out bigger projects and, you know, vaping sensors, and, you know, someone tends to start to handle these other things that are outside of, you know, the classroom and the teaching elements that come into play.
And is your staff the educational technologist, or does that fall under Lisa, helping the teachers integrate technology into actual classroom teaching?
So that's another topic that usually, you know, it's kind of a combination between Lisa and I. You know, there really is not a person designated as that integration. Lisa, I don't know if you want to, comment on that, but that is one of the things that I know Lisa and I have had conversations about.
Thanks, Joe. That position is definitely a void. We do have at the high school level and at the intermediate level, we have an AV tech stipend that that person will be involved with supporting teachers and administrators. I think that's primarily though from the like logistical standpoint, rather than learning new technologies and working in the classroom like an instructional technology coach. That's a very different position. We did put into this year's budget at each of the elementary schools who have no stipend, an AV tech person. And so we did put in a stipend at each of the elementary schools that would allow, I would imagine it would be mostly the technology teacher who's been acting in that role informally outside of their regular teaching hours to support the staff in learning these new instructional technologies. And when things go down, they work with the supervisor to help the teacher. But we've brought in a tremendous amount of technology in the 3 years that Mr. Lee and I have been here, and a lot of instructional technology. And I think, that's a good thing. And it can be great when you have the support to make sure that the teachers have really strong support in both learning the technology, having someone model instructional technology lessons in the classroom, and can quickly get support when something goes wrong. There's nothing worse for a teacher than planning out an incredible lesson, interactive with technology, and then something. And we don't have that kind of staff right now. The setup doesn't work like that. And I think it interrupts what could be some really fabulous lessons. And we have the resources there with the instructional technology, but there's a void there for sure.
Thank you. And Joe, does the website fall under technology?
Yes.
It does. Okay. And just fill me in. I mean, the website's a communication tool primarily, and curious to know how we, maybe don't answer this now, but how do we integrate our website currently with technology to use it as a portal, as a central hub of communication for distribution to PTAs, PTOs, school parents, so on and so forth? Or is that all third-party pieces that we use, or is it through the website directly currently?
So in the plan that as it's being written, one of the comments that I am making in the plan is we use various third parties and, looking for more centralized systems, systems that we can really capitalize on all of it and not having all of these branches coming off. That's one of the other headaches here. We constantly have these branches of technology. So, when we look at our website, there is some functionality that I know that the company that we use to host our website, doesn't support, like an intranet. And in today's day and age, it's shocking that this company would not have the ability for us to build an actual intranet off of their site. So, anything internal tends to be, building based and doing what, each building needs, and trying to rein it in and having that central point of contact for the website. Right now in the plan, we do have, it does fall under my department, but each building also is responsible for various elements of the website, and some elements will get posted and, others will not. And, really having the process as to what's being posted and what's getting communicated out is another key element. This is a lot of the conversation that is going on and trying to consolidate everything into a single element for us to support.
Thank you. If you haven't already done so, I would ask you to put the company Final Site on your list of reviews. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Adam?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. This is, I've gotten on my soapbox, especially when we were talking about the budget, about how there is a lack of being able to plan capital and having, say, a reserve account in order to finance some of these things where we can kind of have a piggy bank that we save a little bit every year on towards these types of initiatives. I agree with you. I think there is going to need to be at some point a IT governance committee at every school district, because I just being around it as much as I am, I see the general trends, and to Ralph's point, there's a branch off now away from purely the educational aspect of it and more to a critical systems aspect within the buildings. I think, I'll give you a perfect example. If you go to a new construction and commercial building now, in a lot of cases, they're putting two networks in. They have one that handles the critical communications, and then the other ones that handle all your building systems. Lights are starting to run off of switches, the LEDs that are in the ceilings. The buildings are going to need to become more complex. And if we don't keep up with that now, it's going to become a problem in the future as we continue to upgrade aging buildings. So, besides the security aspect of it, which is huge right now, and being able to have, I'll talk about redundancies again, because it is a critical system within the building. These are things that we're going to be investing a lot of money in. And I think it's a fair ask on Mr. Lee's part to at least try to get some board level input, because there's decisions that are going to need to be made in the near future with regards to this. So, again, that's something I would be willing to commit to right now. I'd be more than happy to participate in even just an informal discussion with regards to that, because again, it's something that I myself I'm guilty of not including the IT director in a building-based decision and bring him in at the last minute, and I always kick myself in the rear for doing it because I know it's the wrong thing to do. So I will apologize in general. And you know what? I think you're on the right track. Thank you.
Joe, just a question. Are all the people in your department cross-trained? Because you said there's like computer technicians and network guys. So is everybody able to step in and do the other person's job if need be?
Yes, to a point. Again, the way that the department was structured was very difficult when I first got here. So I do serve as a backup to a lot of what goes on. So recently we changed, about 2 years ago, we changed the software analyst, I think his title is. Again, it's a title that doesn't actually pertain to the job that he's doing, but he became our student information systems guy. And handling the state reports, and all of that fell under the director, and the director was responsible for submitting all the state reports. And I walked in here, and within 8 days, I had a state report being done for a district that I knew nothing about. So now this guy has taken it on, and he actually has a calendar and his own document of, when things are supposed to be getting done, when they're supposed to be reported, who his contacts are in order to be able to get the information. There is cross training. I bring all the guys. We have 2 team meetings a month so that we all can share the information. But the size of our department, we don't have a choice but to be cross trained, because we have to be because of the size. I focus, the cybersecurity side. I'll take that on as the lead, but one of my guys, Philip Kurtz, who handles a lot of the networking side, will step in if need be on any of the cybersecurity stuff, if that makes sense.
Well, and I will say too, when you talk about core switches and things like that, those are things that there's really no negotiating on, because if something like that goes, we just have to replace it. We can't say we're going to put it off because the whole system won't work. So, and I know we've done some upgrades over the last few years with some of these things. So that's one of those things you throw in front of us and say, hey, it's shot. We have no other choice.
Well, and that's why, like, you know, a lot of the work that has been done over the time of me being here for the last 3 years, you know, I know when I come to you guys saying, you know, I need another $100,000 for a core switch, you know, Brian's eyes shoot out of his head, you know, but it's the needs that come because, you know, they need to be done. And as we start to look at security and you know, as the cameras age, every time we have to replace a camera, we have to bring a vendor in who has to, you know, remove the camera and install it, where there's newer technologies that are out there that, you know, we can do ourselves and have a turnaround time of 24 hours versus a turnaround time of, you know, a week, and having a camera down in a building for a week.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions of Mr. Lee? Or Brian?
Sorry, Christine, just to interject there with regard to the topic Joe just brought up, as far as expending funds and switches and servers, I would ask if Mr. Lee could go through the current requisitions that he has in for the end of the year for such thing as switches and servers, because they will be on the agenda next week, because they're being purchased through the New Jersey School Boards Association's 21st Century Classroom Solutions, which is a cooperative used for school districts to use. That'll be on the agenda because of the total cost of the purchase orders, which is a little over $200,000. But this way he can address any questions and give an explanation of those purchases.
Joe, just before you do that, Christine, did you have a question that you wanted to slide in? Or you want to wait?
I was just going to ask if we had any idea of when we were going to actually look at the plan, this ballpark. Are we talking a couple months, couple weeks?
So I actually have the plan. I want to say it's probably about 95% complete. The only aspect that I'm really putting together right now is the actual like roadmap section. I have the where we are, where we'd like to go, immediate items. But I also, when I design a plan like this, I like to have a roadmap, almost like a table that you can look year by year as to what some of the items would be in order to get to where we need to be. And that's the piece that I'm currently working on now, just really making sure that I understand the cost. So, you know, when it is put in front of you guys and you look at it and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money, you know, I actually have the answers for you so that we can have a real conversation about it.
And we'd also like to have Dr. Hanrahan have a chance to kind of review it, you know, just to make sure that her thoughts on the topic are consistent with what Joe and I have been talking about. I know there have been ongoing conversations with Dr. Hanrahan, and I'm pretty sure that she's, you know, 100% behind this, but I would like to have her review it and have her bring it to you once she's digested it and agrees that it's a recommendation she can support.
Just to follow that up, I know I mentioned when we were doing approval of job descriptions, I think some of those job descriptions that we have currently, as they relate to technology, this might be a good time to look at some of those when we're getting a jumping off point for you know, starting to review some of them, because I know, as Mr. Lee is saying, I know a lot of people are doing different jobs, so we may need, that might be a good place to fine tune just to get started.
And Mr. Lee has some definite ideas about the strengths of his different staff members and how they can best be utilized. And I asked him basically to kind of set all of that up before we talk about more staff. Let's make sure that the existing staff is being utilized as effectively as possible. And then we can talk about whether another individual is needed. One of the areas, and I think Mang will be interested in this, is that right now, the you know, we talked about the website, but the whole public relations capacity of the district seems to be buried in the technology department. So that's something else that we need to look at, because I'm not sure that that's where it belongs and is, you know, and I'm not sure it's being used as effectively as it could either. So that's a piece of this whole thing that I think we need to talk about when you see the plan.
Joe, did you want to run through what Brian talked about?
Yes. So one of our, we do have an entire server infrastructure. It's a virtual server environment with attached storage. One of the issues that we have is that it is an older unit that is out of date and is starting to have some hard drives fail and it is an unsupported drive storage. We can renew maintenance, and as we started to price out all of the renewals and all of that, we were starting to look at around $125,000 $125,000 price tag just to renew aging equipment. This then led us into also taking a look at what our options would be for purchasing new environments, you know, and we've had the gamut of vendors kind of give us information. A lot of this was starting to close out just before we went to this virtual world. So that's why there is a delay, and it's more at this point in time versus the March timeframe that we were really looking at. When we look at the requisitions that are currently in the system, one is for the physical hardware. That is, I believe that's $114,000. The physical hardware that would need to be replaced. And then another rec for, I think it was 64,000, is the actual software and maintenance for this. This is a system called Scale Computing, which allows us to have not only physical drives, but also virtual storage for redundancy. The total cost was, I believe, just under 180 for all of that. It was a multi-year support as well. And it's a one-stop shop. So when we look at what we currently have, we have VM, which means that if we have a problem with VM, we have to contact VM. We have a Dell server, we have to contact the Dell server team. We have an EMC storage. If we have a problem there, we have to contact EMC. If we don't know where the problem is, we have to call all three and try to hope that someone can help us out. Scale Computing came back to us as an option through Tech Director Friends, who told us to take a look at it. I do belong to a Google Plus group of tech directors across the state. We did pose this out there and got some great responses, to the point that we did take a look at Scale. Cost-wise, we even had a quote for $600,000 to replace our infrastructure. I can't even imagine bringing a proposal to you for $600,000. So Scale Computing came in at a little over what it would cost to renew our existing environment, running on old equipment. This would be all new with some support and some professional development for us as well to understand their environment. But again, it gives us redundancy that we currently don't have. One of the other purchase orders is for a help desk piece of software. We noticed that this was something that we've constantly been talking about since I've been here. Our help desk software has very limited functionality. When people are asking questions and we want to turn them into projects, that turns into take it out of the help desk and add it into something else. And we were looking for a single point of software that can really help run the technology department. That is the Zendesk. That is a different rec that is outside of the server replacement requisitions. Any questions?
No questions. Mr. Lee, I would just encourage you to not be so concerned about price, although it's obviously something we're going to be looking at. But listen, if the ROI is appropriate and it has good value, then we should be looking at it, and we can water it down as necessary. But if the things are going to be of value in the long term, and it's where the trends are going, and you know that, and you can present that to us, I think we should be able to see it and then know where we're in the A range, we're in the B range, or we're in the C range, whatever the case might be. That would be my personal recommendation. The other thing I would say,
I do appreciate that.
The other thing I would say is, I think it's important for us as Finance and Facilities Committee Chair to see, when you get to this point, as this process moves forward, is, we need to know the things that we need to do tomorrow, the next day and the day after. So keep that in mind as you make that presentation down the road.
And that is actually all going to be in the plan, Mr. Gartz. So, just so that it can really be laid out in in a well-informed way so that we can really make those decisions. You know, I worked in a corporate office prior to being here where, you know, everything was about the ROI and, you know, really kind of getting the best bang for your buck. So, you know, when I see quotes, you know, I'm very familiar with a lot of technology, and I will question vendors real quick when I don't agree with them. That's just how I am. So, you know, when I'm dealing with vendors, you know, I always want what's best for the district. Every district that I've worked in, every corporate environment that I've worked in, it is always about what's best, the right system, the right time, and the system that we're not just going to overpay and have all this functionality that we're not even going to use. I want the system that we're actually going to be utilizing and being able to provide everything that we needed to provide.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
Ralph, I just like to say I appreciate what Dr. Cram also brought to what Joe said with regards to looking at the organizational chart for your department and how we're supporting teachers, as Dr. Gleason said. But with regards to the point about getting a better face for the district in terms of the general communication, that's something that we've been talking about for a while amongst ourselves and some of the complaint that we've been hearing from the public. So I appreciate that you brought that up, Dr. Cram, and that that also be put on the front line as Russell said, with regards to think blue sky here, but know that that is definitely a priority for us as well. Having a person that will be able to do that and allow you and other pieces of the team to do the support directly to the student, teacher, and the system that works for them and us.
And even during this time, not only are we supporting, you know, the staff, but,
Right.
you know, we're getting direct help desk requests from parents.
Right.
So, you know,
I sent you one today.
yeah. So we're also, you know, we're also supporting, you know, the parents that are home with their child that are having problems with the devices, and they're reaching out to us directly. Like I said, I spoke to a parent this morning regarding a potential cybersecurity issue. You know, it's just the nature of our job right now, in dealing with all things technology, from the parents all the way through.
That was also one of the topics at the training that I went to with New Jersey school boards a couple of weeks ago about the cybersecurity and all of that. I'll see if I can send those notes to you as well. So you probably have all that information.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
Yes, I have one thing to say that I want to thank Mr. Lee because he's been consistent for several years, and we are where we're at because of his honesty. I'd like to thank Dr. Gleason, who is always supportive and has a different perspective, a wider view, and we wouldn't be where we are today. But I want, that being said, this IT committee, I think it should be within the IT community. I don't know how anybody feels about students being on that committee, but I don't think you can just have a committee that starts to talk to the board and the public, you know, in very technical terms. Yes, you have to talk to the board. I understand, or the F&F committee, but I just wanted to get that point in. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Can I just comment on that, Ralph?
Sure.
Mr. Wondrak, yeah, a committee like this, you know, it can be open to students. When I was in a previous district, we did have students that did participate in the technology committees and various committees for that matter. In fact, when we were looking for to move everything into a bring your own device in the district that I was in previously, we brought the students in to ask them. And that's when we learned that our wireless password was actually on Twitter, because the students informed us that our wireless password was on Twitter. So, you know, the students sometimes know a little bit more than we do. And it's very beneficial to hear what they have to say. We have been actually working with some students as interns through the pre-engineering program. We try to help out the pre-engineering program and get some interns coming into the department. And we've had some great conversation with those students specifically regarding Chromebooks, the use of Chromebooks, you know, just as part of the role that they are serving. And they get to see the work that goes into the behind the scenes of, you know, what it takes to just get a single Chromebook working and operating and how it all functions within the building. So I value that opinion as well.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Dr. Gleason, was that the end of your report? Yep. Thank you.
Muted.
Okay. Finance and facilities, Mr. Gartz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Anizio. We had a recent F&F meeting last week, and a topic came up that I'm going to ask Dr. Cram to go ahead and address in the you know, for the public's understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Gartz. Yes, the administration informed the Finance and Facilities Committee during their meeting on June 4th of the results of a partner engineering report dated May 28th regarding the testing of the rubber floors at Wall High School, Allenwood School, and the West Belmar School for mercury. The tests were done as a proactive measure in response to New Jersey Department of Health, Environmental and Occupational Health Surveillance Guidelines and the New Jersey Department of Education guidelines that were issued earlier this year. Partner Engineering collected samples at Allenwood, West Belmar, and Wall High School and reported that no detectable concentrations of mercury were found at Allenwood and West Belmar, and therefore they made no further recommendations for investigation or remediation of these areas. The samples from the high school gym did reveal the presence of mercury, and in accordance with the New Jersey Department of Health guidelines, Partner Engineering has been collecting air samples at the high school to determine if airborne concentration of mercury vapors exist. They've also taken additional bulk samples to confirm the original test results. The results of the additional testing should be available by the end of the week, and further action will be taken in response to those results. The gym in the meantime has been locked, and signage has been placed on the doors indicating that the area should not be entered. The Board Finance and Facilities Committee requested that the administrators notify the building level administrators, which we did immediately following our meeting, as well as the leadership of both the Teachers and Administrators Association. We'll provide more specific information regarding the results of the second series of tests, and we'll discuss and make public any possible next steps required for remediation of the situation.
Thank you, Dr. Cram. And just to follow up to that statement, the board is committed to communicating effectively with the public and the internal staff about the testing. And as we have more information, as Dr. Cram said, we will continue to share that as is appropriate. We do have another meeting next week, and as more information is provided, we will address it accordingly. So thank you, Dr. Cram. Mr. Smythe, can you talk to us a little bit about the enterprise accounts to kick us off?
Yes, I can. With regard to the first item on the agenda with the enterprise account attached is the food service revenue and expense report. We touched on it last week a little bit, maybe a little premature with regard to the anticipated projections for the year, because we're only through May. We still have to get through the end of June for our year-end projection. And based on our numbers to date, we are in negative $133,000 for the year. And as discussed in prior months, when we went into the school closure, we were anticipating about a $200,000 loss with regard to the food service enterprise account, and it looks like we're going to be there or perhaps a little bit under that based on our current projection for the month of June. We think it will be about $195,000 as far as a loss for that account. With regard to the RAP program, again, as part of the legislation that requires us to continue to operate as though the school was in session. We were not bringing in revenue for the second half of March, April, May, or June. However, we had to continue as though we were continuing operation, as though school was in full session and students were present. We continued payroll for those 3.5 months. And the projection for the RAP program with regard to from a cash flow revenue expense analysis is that that loss will be about $108,000 for the year. What we're looking at is different ways to attempt to subsidize these accounts. We are still trying to research the Paycheck Protection Act to see if we could apply. As of yet, we've been advised no, but we're continuing to pursue that. And we're reviewing reappropriating funds within the general budget as it relates to depending on our state aid cut, as well as how we apply our CARES Act funding, and whether the application of the CARES Act funding in response to COVID-19 will allow us to provide funds to subsidize these accounts so that at year end, we can still, we can make them whole so that we can continue to operate next year. Any questions on item 1?
Mr. Smythe, the CARES Act funding, is that due to be clear to us here in the next week or so, or how long do you expect that to linger before we have total clarity on its availability and usage?
We have to make application for that by June 19th, I believe is the deadline. Dr. Gleason is actually in the process of making that application. We have the ability to use those funds for the next couple of years, but the application is due in June. So Dr. Gleason and myself and Dr. Cram are discussing how best to apply those, which we've discussed in prior meetings. It would be the application of the remedial summer programs that we've budgeted to make up for what we anticipate to be the loss in state aid, as well as the purchase of Chromebooks for the anticipation that we will be remote and, as we've discussed with the technology plan. Dr. Gleason, can you add some context to that?
Yes, so we had budgeted in our general fund the summer remediation program before we were aware of the specifics of the CARES Act grant. So we had budgeted for summer programming. We budgeted for the replenishment of 20% of our current Chromebook inventory, as well as the acquisition of Chromebooks for kindergarten and first graders, so that we would have enough Chromebooks for all students should we need to go into full virtual instruction again. And there are 12 allowable uses under the CARES Act. We are reviewing right now with our county ed specialist. We know that the Chromebooks qualify. We know that the summer remediation program qualifies. We are still working through whether we can use some of those funds to subsidize some of the revenue loss and salaries paid for both RAP and food services. So we've put that through to the county. We're still really waiting to see if that's a possibility. And if that's not, we'll have to move that over to local funds and move back over into some of the CARES Act, some of the items that we had budgeted in local funds, and we can move the funding source over to CARES. We have approximately $236,000 in the allocation for our CARES grant. And it is due, as Brian said, June 19th. We'll make application by that time. The board will have a copy of the grant application, and we have until September of 2023, I believe, to expend all of those funds.
And there's no deadline like there is with some of the other federal grants that the sooner you apply, the more money is available. We're guaranteed to get that money if we apply by the 19th, correct?
That's correct. That money is the funding formula. They use our Title I funding formula, although we are not limited to the allowable uses that we are with Title I. So that money has already been allocated. You don't get any more if you apply sooner or any less if you apply later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on the enterprise funds? Okay. With regard to item number 2, the facility project update, with regard to central school trailer removal, this has been discussed. We've had BOE approval for over a month now. We're going through the checklist for the county to address anything that they require, as well as any of the additional requirements that were put on in order to obtain a building permit from the municipality, whether it be by the Department of Labor or the Department of Health or the DEP. We've hired consultants and spent money to test for asbestos to demonstrate that there's no asbestos within the trailers. We've done testing to determine or to prove that there's no sewage that is underneath the trailers, as well as testing to ensure that there's no lead paint within the trailers. All things that were disallowed well before the trailers were constructed. However, we've gone through those exercises to prove that, in fact, they don't exist. We're checking off the last of the items, and hopefully we have them completed by the end of this week. That we are hopeful, and then we will look to schedule with the county the actual removal of the trailers once the permit is issued. Anything on the trailers? On the stadium football field, as we've discussed, the in-house operations department has been putting in drainage on both the visitor side and the home side. All the piping is in, some final grading is being done, and they're in a process of obtaining sod to repair the areas that were disturbed when they put in the drainage pipe. And we anticipate that it's going to significantly improve the drainage of the field, and that with that we will get sufficient side growth, and we won't have the low-lying areas that currently or were previously collecting water. And that work is ongoing. Again, the pipe is in, and we're in the process of obtaining quotes and ordering the sod for the field. No questions? The summer 2020 HVAC project that is ongoing with minor work at Old Mill School. A couple classrooms are getting univentilators in that school. And then we have significant work being done at Allenwood School and the second floor of Central School. We've had an opportunity to allow the contractor to work while school was closed. However, we limited to the extent that they could work because we always anticipated that we would be reopening. And we also needed to have the classrooms closed up for the summer before we can give the total green light to the contractor to go in there. Although they did have an opportunity to get a jump on the project. As of June 1, they've been given that green light. The classrooms have been closed up for the summer. And it is anticipated that we're going to gain about a month in construction time and that the work will be done prior to the end of July. We anticipate even a earlier completion date for Old Mill. There isn't significant work at Old Mill, but unfortunately we are dependent on a delivery schedule for the univentilators. But once we receive those univentilators, they'll be able to turn the work around rather quickly. So we anticipate Old Mill being done a little bit earlier than the rest of the other two schools. Any questions on the facility project? You have to push your space bar down. Mr. Wondrak, I can't hear you.
What is left to be done? I know there's more to this project, and it isn't a lot of things, but what is left to be done so people hear it?
With regard to the providing air conditioning in the schools?
Exactly.
Okay. With regard to the initial discussion about adding air conditioning to the schools, we were originally looking at a 3-phase project, which was not going to provide air conditioning in every educational space or every space of the building, but was going to get it was going to air condition all the regular classroom. What is still outstanding would be the first floor of Central Elementary School. That is not air conditioned. The front of the two-story section, the first floor in the front of the building, the first floor in the middle section of the building, and the back is in fact air conditioning. But that last section is not being done. It's being somewhat tied to the replacement of the boiler, because as we make these changes at Central, which is a steam system, we're converting it to hot water, and we have to put in heat exchangers every time we do. However, when we put in the third phase or the second phase of Central and we air condition that last section, we don't want to go through the process of incurring the cost of additional heat exchanger and then removing it once we change the boilers. Because as we've discussed with the long range facility plan, we're in need of replacing the boilers, a number of boilers in the district, one of those locations being Central Elementary School. So that's still remaining. There's still some outstanding spaces within the district that are not air conditioned, such as there's one technology classroom at the intermediate school that's not air conditioned, as well as the auditorium at the intermediate school. There's also gymnasiums at the elementary school. I want to say Allenwood School is not air conditioned. The South Gym at the high school is not air conditioned. So there's some odd spaces that even with this project being completed will not be air conditioned. So they still need to be done, but they're included in the long range facility plan. Anything else on the,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else on the facility projects? Okay, next on the agenda, item number 3, professional and extraordinary services. As discussed at previous meetings, the district has gone out for RFPs for property casualty insurance broker, the attorney, the auditor, and we also did an RFP for banking services. We have done the review of both A and B, property casualty insurance broker and the attorney. We've received responses for the banking and the auditor, and C and D are both still under review, but A and B are on the agenda for approval next week.
Can I chime in there, Brian?
Absolutely, sir.
So as a subcommittee, we decided these were the professional extraordinary services we wanted to tackle for this year. You'll see as we get through the rest of this agenda, there's others that will be renewed from this year to next because of timing and just the ability to interview as many as we need to go through the RFP process for all of them would have been very difficult. So we chose these 4. We feel confident in A and B that we had 4 RFPs for property and casualty, and we interviewed 3. And we, had a good discussion around the different candidates, and Brown & Brown stood out as the best for that position. In terms of the attorney, we had 15 RFPs presented to us. We took the time to evaluate, and we watered down our top 3 or 4 each, and then we came to an agreement that we would interview 4 law firms, and Scarillo and Cornell came out as the winner of that discussion. We checked the references and they were glowing, and we were able to get them for a price less than they had put in our RFP, and we feel very confident about that recommendation. Any discussion or questions, feedback anybody wants to?
I have a question.
Sure.
So in regards to the attorney, their list of recommendations of districts were Cranford, Ridgewood, Medford, Milburn, and Hanover. They listed their district size, but they haven't listed the duration that they've been the attorneys of those districts. Do we have any idea as how long they've been working with each of those districts? Is that the whole, is that all the districts that they work with, or is there more? Or is that just the top ones that they wanted to reference? And then do we know of any negotiations issues? I mean, I read through some of the bios, and some teachers are, some of their attorneys are actually retired teachers. So I'm curious to know in regards to negotiations, if the attorney has any outstanding contract negotiations with any of the education associations.
My apologies. I was on mute.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
As you were talking, I was looking for the, I do not remember off the top of my head. I was looking for the email of the districts that I did choose from their list. They gave me another list beyond what was on their RFP because I did ask for districts of similar size. And I cannot find that email right now. But the two districts I did speak to, I know they were attorneys for them for over 15 years. One of the things they did talk about in the interview process was the fact that they have long relationships and they've been able to keep those relationships through the hard work and dedication and professionalism that they've shown. So that came through.
Ridgewood did have an issue in 2018 that I was able to find online. I don't know about the other ones, but I just wanted to make it, bring it to the surface at this point, so that way everyone was aware.
The issue is with the attorney or just an issue in general?
An issue well, I can't speak about how specific there was, but when you're in a contract negotiations with the teachers union, you really want the attorney to work with both sides so that way it doesn't end up in that predicament.
And so what was the net outcome of what you're reading there that I don't have access to it?
I'll send you the information for you to review.
Sure.
After the meeting.
Sure, I was unaware of that. I did not call Ridgewood. That's not one of the districts I spoke to. So that didn't come up on my radar in terms of the investigation. Your other question was about labor?
I was curious to know about, you answered in regards to how the duration that they've been working with each one of the districts. And if this was the only amount of schools that they're working with, or if there's a larger pool and they only gave you the top ones that they wanted you to reference.
Well, I'm sure, I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure they have a larger scale of clientele than what they gave us for reference. Obviously, references are chosen generally for, a select group of people. I didn't ask what their current client base was. That didn't come up in the interview process. No one else had brought that up. Mr. Anisio, Mr. Hall, Mr. Nasser were all in the room. They did not ask that question, so I don't know the answer to that question.
No worries. I was just curious in regards to some of the other RFPs that came through, had a whole list of districts that they work with. So I was just kind of curious. That's all.
Yes, a lot of the RFPs had a variety of information, and a lot of the RFPs that came through were law firms that do a variety of other things: municipal, corporate, insurance, government, authorities, and schools. Personally, Scarillo and Cornell stood out to me for one reason, amongst other reasons, is that they strictly do educational law. I think they may have one other client that is not a school district, and that was appealing, as was the fact that they do have, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 staff members who did work in school districts. One is a business administrator for a number of decades. The founder himself was a former guidance counselor. So I personally felt that was appealing and something that could bring value down the road. Just my opinion. Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Okay. We'll continue with the agenda. Item number 4 is the annual appointments. A majority of them, or at least at the beginning, are appointments for the superintendent of schools. So we've held off until Dr. Handerhan has been approved. So she's now being included and assigned all the tasks that she didn't read in the fine print when she signed on. So they're all there. In addition to that, we have subrates that are being approved. A number of them have increased. We provided in parentheses what the current year rate is. We've discussed it with the directors or managers of those departments and discussed the rate increase. And rather than holding off over multiple years and then looking for a larger increase, some departments were looking to try to stay current and competitive with neighboring school districts to try to bring individuals in. The largest increase being for nursing, which is, we don't use a lot of sub-nursing, but it is difficult to obtain. We're trying to be competitive, and it's something that we think is probably going to be even more difficult in the coming years. So that would be the recommendation. In addition, we have the various school plans that have all been provided to the Board of Education to review, but we have them listed for approval for the 2021 school year. And then we have our application to the Department of Education for dual use. When we're using a space for more than one use, we have to obtain approval from the Department of Education, which we will do once it is approved for submission by the board this month. Any questions on the annual appointments?
Mr. President, can I speak to one of the things that you just mentioned, Brian? The sub rates. I looked at those and I don't know which ones have increased. It not necessarily something that I need to know right now, or the board should know right now. But to your point, you just said that it's difficult to get subs in certain positions. And I think this is where we're going to help the situation by being a little more competitive or aggressive, I dare say, with what those compensations are, because over the short period of time that I've been with WAL, but the longer period of time I've been with schools and education, this problem has been longstanding, and maintenance, nurses, and even teachers, it's very difficult to get the subs in. So when we're able to, please keep looking at those rates, because as an example, $100 a day for a sub teacher, just, you know, I don't know how people are going to go flocking in for that, because it basically comes out at $17 an hour. And when we do staff development in the buildings or out of the buildings, more so in the building, that makes or breaks the ability to do professional development. And, you know, I could speak to each of those positions, but over the years, I've heard from many of the departments that, you know, there is a shortage. And I do believe that the compensation factor is part of the equation. So keep looking at it, please.
We will. And one of the things we also factor in is the, you know, the duration of the substitute assignments. You know, sometimes it's difficult to get a substitute for, you know, only 6 hours or less. Sometimes, especially in the area of food service, they might be working 2 hours or a little less than 4 hours, which is sometimes difficult. But on the agenda with regard to like the substitute bus driver, I put in parentheses that it's, you know, we're recommending $20 per hour from $19 an hour. The substitute custodian is $13 an hour from $12 an hour. Food service workers is recommended 13 from 11. And again, we said the substitute nurse is at $150 per day. That's from $125 a day. And then the remaining substitute rates are all what they are in the current year. So those are the ones that we increase. And again, with the exception of the nursing, most of them were just minor increases to try to stay current and competitive.
Russell, you got a question?
Yes, thank you, Ralph. A couple of questions, Brian. Just more just for my own understanding. The signators, the 2-3 people on each of those. Does that mean, you know, like for the regular account, Ralph, yourself, and the treasurer signs all checks, or is that just who's available to sign checks?
Now, all 3 signatures are required to be on the warrant.
Okay, and those are standard assignments, so to speak, for those roles.
It's by statute.
Right. Okay.
And it's not that we actually sign the checks; they're printed with signatures with a check signing block.
Gotcha. In terms of the substitute situation, just curious, if a teacher is absent, you know, during virtual learning, or the nurse can't be on call the day of a virtual day, are we hiring substitutes? Just curious.
Go ahead, Dr. Gleason.
Thank you. We tried to get ahead of that. We spoke with building administrators back in March when we first went into virtual learning, and we identified teachers that did not have class rosters assigned to them. So These could be some of the interventionists or reading specialists, various types of positions that did not have to report with a class roster. They were scheduled to see students throughout the week. And so in some cases, a media specialist perhaps. So in some cases with some short-term absences or short-term leaves, we used internal staff to fill those positions. With the exception of I believe 1 or 2 leave replacements that were scheduled. They were maternity leaves, long-term. We had already scheduled, I believe it was only 1 or 2 teachers, and we had the ability to transition them to teach them the virtual environment with the teacher or a supervisor. We did approve, I believe, 2 people during the entire time, but the rest of those substitutes were all covered internally.
Thank you. And my last question is around the plans that are on this approval list, all the varied preparedness plans, AED plan, biosecurity, bloodborne pathogens, et cetera, et cetera. When, who's reviewing those? When's the last time they were reviewed? What committee sees those? Is that a board thing? Is that a staff thing? That's a lot of plans to just stamp approval on without knowing what they say. They all seem very important. So just some feedback on that would be helpful.
They're reviewed, or they're prepared annually, reviewed annually, and modified annually by the department that is responsible for it. So it would be operations for many of the plans. It could be the food service department for the biosecurity plan, and the director of special services for the plan related to, such as the AED plan. Dr. Lisa, I'm not sure if you want to comment.
Yep.
The
The district emergency preparedness plan, that was a new plan specific to school closure related to public health crisis that we were required to develop and submit to the county. We had to submit that in a very quick period of time back in March to show how we were addressing virtual instruction to meet the home instruction policies and regulations, how we were addressing special education and instruction for English language learners and other special populations, as well as food services during closure. We submitted that within that 72-hour window. The county has asked us to update those plans. And so it's a little more extensive now as we've been in school closure, but it details out everything we've done since we went into school closure. I completed that plan for the county back in March. And they also had recommended that we put it on the district website. That plan has been up there. It's highlights of the district emergency preparedness plan. The only thing that's different from the plan we submitted to the county versus what's on our website is it does not contain cell phone numbers for district administrators. That's not on the plan. That we were now required to have the plan board approved. That was new. And so we've put that on with our list of renewals. I don't know if it will become an annual renewal, but it is something that we have to show a board resolution that we approved in virtual during the school closure.
So I just asked that if they're not already being reviewed through committee in some capacity. I mean, I know it's not our responsibility to create the plan, but before we vote on them, I think we should be able to, I mean, I guess we have access to them, but I imagine the superintendent is reviewing them all before they go up the chain. Just a point of reference going forward.
Absolutely.
Adam?
This is for Brian. Is the minimum wage still going up $1 on January 1st next year?
I don't, in fact, know that.
Okay.
It's actually going to happen.
Yeah, because I know there was some talk of rolling it back, and I'm looking at this, and not for this year, but next year, if it's going to continue to go up to the $15, every year that goes by, it's going to affect a larger pool of people, and there's going to be more competition for that same group of people. So we're going to need to be conscious of that. It's going to it's going to remain difficult going forward.
Absolutely.
But, thanks.
Anything else on the annual appointments? Okay, with regard to item number 5, our third-party administrator for self-insurance for medical and the RX plan, there's an attachment. It would be the resolution that would be on the agenda for this month with regard to when we have the Board of Education meeting. And that's based on the recommendation. It kind of goes hand in hand, both 5 and 6. One is the 5, the third-party administrator for our medical and RX, and then 6 being our Delta insurance carrier. Brown & Brown Metro is our broker for our health benefits. They solicit quotations from other providers for both the third-party administrator and the Delta insurance. They solicit quotes from other providers such as Aetna, AmeriHealth, MagnaCare. They also looked at some pharmacy benefit managers. And what ends up happening, and this has happened, annually with regard to Horizon being our third-party administrator, because of the discounts that we get through Horizon, they come back to having Horizon being deemed the most cost-effective for the district. Even though if a third-party administrator may come in with a lower monthly fee or annual cost as far as the lump sum, because of their discounts that we receive through Horizon and the fact that we're self-insured, ends up being most beneficial. And that is the recommendation again this year. In addition, when we approve the stop loss provider for basically our reinsurance, as we've discussed with regard to being self-insured, we cover claims up to $125,000 for a participant, and then any costs over that for a particular participant would be covered by our stop loss protection or our stop loss insurance. That is also being provided by Horizon, and part of the discount or competitiveness we get from Horizon for that program is because they are our third-party administrator. So the recommendation from Brown & Brown, after soliciting quotes from the other vendors, looking at the discounts we get on both medical and prescription with Horizon, and factoring in the stop loss program that we have, the recommendation is to renew. It's the second year of a 3-year proposal that Horizon had provided to us. The increase on a participant level went from $41 a month to $42. So it's an increase of $1, and that is what they had proposed to us when they provided the 3 years. And it's not a locked-in 3-year contract. We could go elsewhere, but it was more of a 3-year price commitment. In addition, as a result of the current year and the school closure and COVID-19, we added telemedicine to our program. That's 50 cents a participant per month. And we added that in March when we had the school closure, as a benefit for our employees, and we're going to continue that next year in anticipation of providing that benefit because it's been beneficial. With regard to, go ahead, Mr. Wondrak. I can't hear you.
How much does that cost us a year?
50 cents a month per employee.
Good. That's it.
Okay. And there's about 500 participants that are enrolled in our plan. With regard to Delta Dental, the broker also solicited quotes from other providers such as the Guardian, United Concordia, and also Horizon. One of the things, and we've been with Delta Dental, it's been a good program for us. And one of the things that's analyzed on an annual basis, even though we do solicit quotes and some may be more competitive from a price point, there would be a substantial network disruption for our employees if we were in fact to change plans. And that may be an issue with regard to negotiations in the collective bargaining agreement. In addition, one of the things Delta Dental and their increases, they've maintained their rates for next year. They kept them flat to the current year, so there is no increase. And attribute part of that to Brown and Brown doing that negotiation on our behalf, because I think initially there was an increase, and they negotiated that to be for the rates to remain flat. In addition, because of essentially the inability to utilize the insurance for the last 3 months, Delta Dental has given us a credit in next year of approximately $36,000 that'll be applied in the first 3 months of the school year with Delta Dental. So the recommendation from Brown and Brown is to renew with Delta Dental, with rates being remaining flat from the current year to next year, and the application of the credit. And again, that resolution is attached and would be on the agenda for next week. No questions? Item 7, it's actually 7 and 8 were discussed at our FNF committee meeting last week. We had the athletic director, Mr. Tom Redu, present information with regard to the NFHS network subscription to broadcast events. The concern with by the athletic director and by the high school and the district is going to be the ability to have our parents in our community be able to participate in athletic events or be able to watch the athletic events. So one of the things we want to be prepared for is to be able to live stream our athletic events as well as other events that are going on in the school district. The committee had a number of questions with regard to this network subscription. We would have to purchase some equipment to allow this to happen with regard to cameras and to add to the network. The proposal was about just under $8,000, but in answering some of the questions that were asked as far as being able to expand the subscription or the coverage to not only the varsity athletic field and the main gymnasium, but to also cover events remote at 18th Avenue, to cover events that would be held in the auditorium and perhaps the South Gymnasium. I believe additional equipment is going to be necessary. So I would say the costs for equipment are probably going to be around $10,000 to $12,000 above the, not in addition to, but from the $8,000 that was initially discussed with Mr. Redu. But I didn't know if any of the FNF committee members wanted to add comments with regard to the subscription that we're looking to provide.
Yes, Brian, I'll support everything that Tom had brought to the table. He answered a flurry of questions about the the efficacy of the program and how we could bring value to the community with the sports scene being up in the air a little bit, and even in good times, it provides opportunities for grandparents and uncles and people out of town to be able to see games as well. And so we felt it was a good opportunity because there's a way to offset the expense through advertising and subscriptions and such. So the outflow of money is not necessarily a total outflow as we get through working through the system. Dr. Hanrahan was in our meeting, and Rumson has used it for a number of years. And since that meeting, I've spoke to several people at other high schools as well who have it, and they speak very highly of it. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to consider for sure.
I will say that I was not 100% on board with this in light of everything that's going on in the world and the financial crisis that could be facing the district. And I still don't think we should be spending the money on this year. With all the unknowns going into the new school year, unfortunately, something like this, I think, should be on the back burner. Chris, you have something? Sam Filippo.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Was there any availability to have like the audio video club, like announce the games, or is it just video? I mean, I'm immediately thinking like, like college radio station type things on that, or Is that anything that was brought up at all?
We did have that discussion, and Tom mentioned that it's awfully difficult for him to find kids to even want to video the games. I thought the same thing, Chris. There would be a collaboration of kids in a broadcasting type of club to expand it. I think we can. I don't think the system prohibits it. I think it's a matter of us having this club or this group of kids, stepping up to take advantage of the opportunity.
Okay, and one other thing is, being able to have it be remote is a great thing too, because then you could do away games as well.
Well, one of the things with the subscription, if you have a subscription to this network, and our school district participates, and there's an away game, and that school district participates, our parents would be able to watch that game through their subscription.
What did we ever get an answer as to how many school districts in this area that we actually compete with have it?
Well, the teams that we play vary from year to year depending on the sport as well. So I think that would be hard, but I don't know that answer. I don't know that we did get that.
It doesn't vary that much, but we still haven't been provided that answer. It's still an outlay of a decent amount of money, and people have to buy a subscription to it. That's the other part of it. It's what is it, $10 a month they have to pay for it? And you're talking about, we only have 4 home football games a year, and that's where it was talked about mounting it out there. So you're going to spend $5,000 for 4 home football games. You have to sell a lot of subscriptions above $10 to pay that off. Go ahead, Christine.
I guess I was going to ask the same question in terms of what the subscriptions were going to cost us, and people are going to be buying these like a season, a yearly subscription. I'm just trying to figure out what this is going to cost us and what we think people are going to actually pay to have a subscription.
I think another thing to think about is an advisor. We're gonna have to have another stipend for a staff member to oversee the students using that, and that would be an additional money spent as well.
Well, the way it was presented. Yeah, Joe.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Russell. The way I understood it, and I hadn't necessarily come down either way, but the way I understood it is that we would pay a nominal fee of, like Brian said, of $7,000-8,000 to purchase this equipment that they would install, and then they would be taking the hit if nobody in Wall Township wanted to buy a subscription, and nobody in Wall would have to do it, and it wouldn't cost the district another penny. It would be up to parents that wanted to watch games that maybe they couldn't have, or grandparents and such. The $10 a year or $10 a month. Again, that's between the vendor who provides the installation and the people who would want to buy a subscription. The school district would not be involved in that. What Brian also was mentioning is that this thing, these cameras that they would be providing, could be used in other locations. It just wouldn't be the football field. And Tom was saying that a lot of the big time soccer games that they have, maybe would be used to play under the lights on the football field to bring back that old flavor like they used to do. But it can also be used for the auditorium to do plays, or to any other type of battle of the band type things, or when the PTOs do their different things at the school. So it's a variety of uses, not just on the football field and use it 4 times a year. Now I don't know if that makes it palatable or not, but it's still something to think about. It's time when we might be playing high school sports with no ability to watch your kids play. The amount of outlay that we're paying, and I had suggested at the meeting that maybe we'd reach out to the Crimson Knight Club or the football boosters or some of these other places, to see if we could, maybe get 1,000 here or 1,000 there from them to help out, being that that's the kind of things they do. We're not talking, while in this time, any amount of money is a significant amount of money, but I don't think we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking, $10,000, $12,000. And if somehow we could get buy-in from some of the sports booster organizations, I think that could be whittled down even further. And again, it would be, a service that if you wanted to do it, you would do it. If you didn't want to do it, then you didn't have to do it. So again, it's it's a little bit more. I mean, maybe we could, if the committee or if the board is still split a little bit, maybe we could have Tom come in and again give a better presentation at the next meeting so that he could go over some of the lingering questions that maybe some board members have. That's just my thoughts.
And I think maybe to address part of the issue with regard to students and a stipend for somebody supervising, the plan in place and with the equipment that would be purchased would not require individuals to operate, and they would be locating a tracking camera at the main stadium as well as in the North Gymnasium at the high school, and it doesn't have to be manned by a person. The camera system tracks the activity that's going out on the court or the field, and there's demos available. If you click on some of the links with regard to the attachments, they give you some demonstrations of a football game, with the tracking equipment. As part of the follow-up, because some of the concern of the committee was the other venues like the South Gym, and as Mr. Redu trying not to incur too much of a cost with regard to outfitting other spaces, only those main spaces. The question was being able to use portable equipment or our own equipment, being able to record it and live stream. And then the response back was, yes, they can be now. I don't know if that, if it's something that could be done with a stationary camera, it may not need students or staff to operate it as well. But perhaps in one of the other venues that they could incorporate the students. But as Mr. Gartz indicated, that they have difficulty trying to get participation, for these games. And sometimes it's okay for a varsity game, but perhaps for the JV or the freshmen. And I think Mr. Redu's concern is that we get into the school year and the students are able to participate in sports, because right now you have professional sports that are occurring without participants, but the games are going on. And if we're in a situation like that, the parents are going to want an opportunity to watch these games and to view their child competing. And he's trying to get ahead of that. And, in his network of athletic directors, in the county this is becoming very popular. And although we don't have a list of districts that perhaps are signing up, but one of his concerns was not making the list in time to have this stuff ordered and installed prior to the fall season.
Yeah, but with that, I mean, every salesman says, get on the list quick or else we're going to sell out. And that's what it kind of sounded like. And the other thing too, that Joe said, which I believe is incorrect, is that these units this camera would be mounted at the football stadium and one in the North Gym. And once it's up there, it's up there. It's not like you can take it down and put it in the auditorium for a play or move it to someplace else. They wire it in. They do all the wiring, correct?
Right, but what I had said though, Ralph, was that as Brian started off by saying that we got a price for that, and that was in that $75,000 or $8,000 range. Brian had suggested that by supplementing that with having additional cameras that could be more mobile would bring the price up to the $10,000 or $12,000 range if we wanted to, outfit some other spaces. So I think that's the issue. You could go with the bare bones and just do the gym and the football field. That's it. Boom, $7,500. They'll come in. They'll put it all in. They'll do everything, and that's it. We wash our hands of it, and they charge parents, and if people want to pay, they pay them, and that's the end of it. We're offering a service to our parents. If we wanted to spend a little bit more money and say, well, let's have some portable ones that we could use in some other gyms where maybe it's the it's the JV wrestling team is in there, so we could set those up to see some not premier team venue, that would be the difference between saying it's 75 or 8,000 and 12,000. I mean, does that capture basically, Brian, what you're saying, or did I misread that at the meeting?
No, you're correct. Because one of the discussions and one of the questions that Tom Redu asked the company and responded back in one of the emails was a concern with the South Gym at the high school. The high school runs their wrestling meets there and the gymnastics meet. And the question was, if we use our own equipment, would we be able to broadcast on the network? And the answer was yes. That's where I think we utilize the students or the equipment that they have in order to broadcast, or perhaps and that's why I wanted to add some buffer with regard to the cost to see if there would have to be something with the network or additional cameras, not the pixel cameras where it self-tracks, but something that's more portable that could be used in the South Gym or the auditorium. But that was a question that Tom Redu asked the company, and it was answered that yes, we can use our own equipment.
Well, I personally, again, rather spend $12,000 and buy better computers than some of these Chromebooks that don't work for people. Adam, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much covered it all. I think the reason this came up, same with the ticketing, the online ticketing, was that, we're looking at options for what a COVID world looks like. And I think hopefully next week, when some more guidance comes down from the state, this needs to at least be on everybody's radar as an option to try to maintain some continuity next year, not just for the students, but for the parents as well. But I mean, I think this is a perfect example of a function that the IT governance committee could take up as part of this, because a large portion of that cost, or at least a nice chunk of it, was just making it connected, making it able to stream, and making sure that the infrastructure was there to be able to support that technology. So, these are the types of questions that are going to come up.
Right. Christine, you had a question, comment? Sorry. Andy, you had something?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that were brought up already are things that would, with answers, might sell this better. Like the idea of having the TV studio involved with it, using it for other events, the partnership with Crimson Knight Foundation and other HSA, PT, or donors from the community that might be interested in supporting this. And then it sounds to me like the equipment purchases one time, although we all know a few months from now, the new fangled thing will come out. But in general, there'll be the initial equipment purchase. But I'm not clear on how the production is handled. While nobody is handling the camera because you're saying it's automated, there's still got to be somebody on the production side. And is that with NFHS?
Yes, they handle the production of it.
All right, so when we give them our schedule, they just orchestrate it from their side, and then the paid subscribers get to see it.
Correct.
Okay. And okay, I think that ameliorates some, answers some of the questions, but I think our ROI has been said. I mean, I would love for the non-permanent cameras like Joe was talking about, that to be, I remember going through the space for the high school, the TV studio. We could really start to expand that functionality as a curricular area, and also, start to give some real meaning. I don't know much about community TV here in Wall yet. No meaning to that.
Yeah, I tend to think, Andy, you're right with the opportunity. I know several schools have their own broadcasting club, and it does allow those kids to go on to college and be part of the broadcasting club at their universities and do radio and TV for bigger time sports, etc. Aaron, you had asked a question about the movement and stuff. The cameras have some artificial intelligence in them, and I didn't believe it either, but they track the people by heat or whatever the case. So there's no manning of the cameras. So in terms of an advisor, unless we had the broadcasting piece, we wouldn't need anybody to be an advisor for just the generic JV football game, freshman football game, varsity football game broadcast. So that's a good point, and it would only be if we had the expansive connection with the broadcast club. I do think this is an opportunity for us to be ahead of the curve. We have a community that's very involved athletically and activity wise. And I think it's important that if there is a circumstance that we do not have access for fans, that we have an alternative. And I think it's important for us to consider in a partnership with some of the clubs, a couple thousand, $1,500 from several of them could underwrite a good portion of this. And maybe we should have this communication and something Mr. Redu should get on real fast before there's a vote next week or within the near future to see how they feel about that.
Christine?
I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to have to digest this. I mean, I'm all for having parents see the kids. I think it's great. I just think that with the amount of stuff we've been wrapping our head around about the financial straits we may be in, I'm having a hard time jumping on board. So, I mean, if anybody wants to, get in touch and maybe we get a little bit more information about this, I'd certainly be open to hearing it, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time with this one.
Ken?
The other thing I wanted to say is that from my own experience, grandparents and parents love these tapes. Used to be that students did it and gave you an 8-track. I realize all those days are over. However, there might be a market for people to buy. I don't know if that was ever explored, but I just want to say that parents and grandparents like to see these games, especially in Wall. We have all these championship teams. That's another thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. Brian? You're on mute.
The number 8, no contact ticket system. Mr. Redu initially presented a program through hometown ticketing. One of the things that has been a concern in the district with athletic events is the line. One, COVID-19, the world changing with COVID-19 is just how we have a manual process with regard to tickets, with regard to the collecting of the tickets, the lines, and with or without COVID-19, he was looking to move toward a ticketless system, just for the efficiency of it. And also one of the other benefits of it is the reporting ability of a ticketless system or no contact ticket system. And in the current era of COVID-19, to be able to have a no contact ticket system just makes it that much more applicable. He initially came out with hometown ticketing. We discussed that there's no cost to the district with regard to no contact ticketing, but the cost is borne by the individuals purchasing the ticket. He has since looked at another program called Ticket Spigot, which is an opportunity which is a little bit more cost effective with regard to the transaction fee that would be charged with the ticket. But the idea is you can, either buy individual tickets, or you have the ability to buy season passes, and then you don't have to worry about it. And it's an app on the phone, and you could show your ticket for whatever events that you wanted to purchase tickets for. Didn't know how much detail you wanted, if it was a no-brainer. It's, you know, it's a no-contact ticket system. It's no cost to the district. However, we do want to, you know, bear in mind that there is a cost with regard to Ticket Spicket. You know, the online is 50 cents for the, I believe it's for the purchase, whether you're buying 1 ticket or 5 tickets, and then there's a 5% processing fee. What was initially discussed with Hometown Ticketing was $1 plus a processing fee, which was ended up being more expensive. So currently, unless we have an opportunity to look at another system, we would be leaning toward Ticket Spicket. But
hey Brian, how much is it? How much is it a ticket for a home football game?
Top of my head, I do not know that.
Chris?
I think students are $2 and adults are $3, right?
Yeah, students are $2, which I know is a bone of contention for many, but
that'd be
$3.
I guess would there still be an availability when you purchase the ticket to have student prices, adult prices, senior prices, you know, whatever else?
Yes. So with like the $3 ticket, the cost if you were to buy 1 ticket would be $3.65. So that would be the cost of the ticket if you were to buy 1. And I believe that the 50 cents would be whether you're buying 1 or 2. So, you know, the more you buy, there's efficiency, but then there's also the 5% processing fee. But the example was just for comparing like Hometown Ticketing to Ticket Spicket.
Brian, is this something we have to decide tonight, or is this something that can be delayed a little bit till closer to see if there's even a need to do this with the season being, you know, potentially in jeopardy?
No, I believe there would be time with regard to this, but it was presented last week together with the network.
I would recommend maybe that we've heard about it now. We'll think about the ticket stuff. I think we're more interested in talking and getting more information about the video because seems to be a time constraint on that. Maybe we can revisit the ticket part.
Okay. There's no other comments on that or questions with regard to the 8 with the ticket. Number 9 is simply just a stale check resolution. We have checks that have been outstanding for more than a year. So what we'll do is pass a resolution to cancel these outstanding checks. And there's a resolution attached.
Brian, have you reached out to the people who these checks were made out to?
What we do is with regard to outstanding checks, if they are district staff, we do. If they are not, we don't. Because some are businesses, some are parents, some are not actually parents of or parents of students attending the school. They may be parents of the community, but not necessarily students. So I don't always know how current the contact information is because these checks were issued over a year ago. And it varies whether it be, some of it's the food service department check, you know, you see on the resolution, it's $10.50 up to 36 or $7.80 for the food service, which typically those are checks issued to seniors when they've graduated and they would never cash, or someone who's moved out of the district that had a balance on their account that were transferring, and we would issue payment based on the balance and the checks were not cashed. And then with regard to the regular account, that would be typically businesses that the district has done business with, or perhaps aid in lieu, which are not students attending the school district. But I don't have the specifics for each one.
Big difference from a few years ago when there used to be staff checks on there.
Yeah, staff checks we contact and go through the process of actually reissuing if they don't find them.
But everything's direct deposit now, correct?
No, well, reimbursements are not.
Right.
So if you
No, I
have
was
a
talking
mileage
about-
reimbursement, if you have a PD reimbursement, anything from accounts payable is not.
But we used to have regular payroll checks that showed up on the report.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Nope, seeing none.
Okay, we also have the Dora Watts King Memorial Scholarship. Based on the attached resolution, it gives you a description of how it originated. Alice G. Watts was a longtime teacher at Allenwood School. The Dora Watts King Memorial Scholarship was funded or was established in 2006. We've been advised that it's no longer going to be funded. So the balance that's currently in the account for the scholarship will be issued to a 2020 graduate. And then with the approval of the board's resolution, the scholarship fund will be closed.
Brian, how do you pick who that scholarship goes to? Is that the family that decides, or?
The scholarships depend on the provisions of the scholarship, but typically it's done either, if they don't specify it, they leave it to the high school administration or guidance department.
Okay.
So it's handled in guidance or the high school.
Any questions? Nope.
Yes.
Oh,
What does the scholarship committee say about this? Or is there one?
Well, it's not, there's not a scholarship committee, but, well, let me correct that. I don't know that there's specifically a scholarship committee. I know there's the guidance department. I think there's various committees depending on the scholarship because, they have a number of scholarships that are issued and it's up to whoever has established the scholarship, whether they're going to review applications and make that determination individually or by their group. But then additionally, the high school has scholarships that they issue or that they have control over, and they have a procedure in place. However, the funding of the scholarship is not dependent on a scholarship committee. It's funded by whoever established the scholarship. So if they're no longer going to fund it, then we can't continue it.
What is the scholarship for? Is there any particular engineering, communications? What's it for?
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know the specifics of this scholarship on what criteria that the high school awards it under.
I just wonder if we shouldn't be looking into this. I don't know how they just stop all of a sudden. I can't buy it.
Well, it's not a determination by the district or the high school. To give you a similar example, I could want to establish a scholarship and fund it each year in someone's name, $500 a year. And then at some point in time, if I want to no longer fund that scholarship, the district's going to not have the funds to provide that scholarship. So therefore, the account, because each scholarship account is maintained in its own individual bank account. So if the scholarship is no longer going to be funded and we're not going to have balance in that account, then we need to close the account and we need a board resolution to approve closing that scholarship account. So this isn't a decision of the board to either continue the scholarship or for the high school administration to continue it. This is, the decision of whoever established and has continued to fund this scholarship, which is which is part of the description. It's the Dora Watts King Memorial Scholarship. It's not a determination or decision that the district is making.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We just need authorization to close the account that held the funds. Okay. With regard to the last item, it would be the end of year funds transfer. This is something we do annually. We prioritize certain reserve accounts. First off would be the emergency reserve account, which we are permitted to maintain in our emergency reserve account 1% of our general fund expenditures. We currently have a balance of $400 and something thousand that is in the emergency reserve account because we did not utilize it in the 2021 budget. However, we are going to be permitted to add to that reserve account, and that is done at audit time when the auditors come in and reconcile and close the books. They'll take how we identify the funds that will go into the emergency reserve account is based on the health benefits balance, or the balance that's in the health benefits account. And we'll transfer funds from that account into the emergency reserve account up to our allowable, so that we can utilize those funds in future budgets. And the two, possibly three purposes you can use emergency reserve funds. One, obviously, in the event of an emergency, we can apply to the Department of Education to use those funds during the school year. However, during budget time, districts are permitted to use those emergency reserve funds to offset increases in the health benefits line account, which we have done. We did it last year or for the current school year, but we don't need to do for the, or we did not need to do for the 2021 school year. However, we also could use those funds for security purposes if it ultimately was approved by the Department of Education. So we put funds into the emergency reserve account for those, for mainly for the health benefit purposes, but also for the ability for security if the board was determined to do so. Additionally, we maintain a maintenance reserve account, and how we fund the emergency or the maintenance reserve account is we take the balances that are in the two accounts, the required maintenance and the custodial maintenance accounts, and the balances that are remaining in there, we will transfer at year end to the maintenance reserve. And as an example, we use those funds to fund the required maintenance in subsequent budgets. In the current year, the 2021, we funded the budget with $500,000 from the maintenance reserve, which is for the required maintenance. So it's a restricted fund with regard to maintenance reserve, because it can only be used for required maintenance or the upkeep of the buildings. And then lastly, the transfer into capital reserve. Those funds that are in excess of our allowable 2% surplus are transferred to our capital reserve for use in subsequent budgets. And funds in your capital reserve can only be used for limited purposes restricted to capital, mainly projects that are included in the district's long-range facility plan, as would be applicable for this district. And this would be the very similar resolutions that we approved last year and each previous year. And what the idea of it is that it allows the district or the Board of Education to allocate those funds into subsequent year budgets as deemed necessary on a year-to-year basis. Questions? Okay. That would be all for the Finance Facilities Committee report, unless Mr. Garch, you have something additional to add.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, Mr. President and Brian.
Yes.
That scholarship is for aspiring teachers. And if you go on the high school webpage, there's a section under guidance department about scholarship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. Appreciate
As
that.
Alice Watts was a longtime teacher at Allenwood School, that seems appropriate.
Makes sense. Any questions from the board? Comments? No? Okay. Seeing none, I will open up public comment.
Do we have new business though, Ralph, at that section?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I know that, people are anxiously awaiting the start of our new superintendent. They should be aware, if they're not, that, that superintendent, anybody coming from another school district has contracted time, which they have to give notice. And the superintendent coming in is in that situation. So while not exactly July 1st, it'll be within that next week or two, either the 10th or the 13th, right?
That is correct, 10th or the
Okay.
13th.
And then to that point, one of the things that this board has talked a lot about is retreat and transition. And we are all anxious to work with Dr. Handerham, but perhaps our outgoing interim and the consultants, as well as some administrative members, to get our board and superintendent going. So I would like to step up to work with Dr. Handerham and anybody else as a small committee, not an official committee that requires any extended time commitment, but to get that going so we can get those dates on our calendar.
Andy, I agree with you. I think it's a great opportunity for us as a board to, bring Dr. Hanran in and, get her going in the right track, have an early retreat with us to get us going in the right direction. And I would volunteer with you if that was something that's still needed.
Yeah, that's great.
Anybody else? Nope. All right. Public comment time. Ms. Cross?
Anybody else have to do something?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Could you start again? You cut out.
Yeah. Is there anybody else online that wants to talk? I have to do something quick. Take them first.
There is not.
Does everybody know how to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Explain how to do it.
You have to go to the box there.
I know, but you don't see it.
No, there is nobody else that has their
I
hand
know.
up.
Well, how would anybody know how to do public comment if you don't explain people how to do public comment?
Well, that's why I was trying to.
Right.
Yeah, they have to raise their hand. And
If anybody would like to speak, click on the raise your hand button and you will be called on.
bottom right-hand dots, they'll come up, raise hand.
I know, but a lot, it's not, you're not seeing it how you normally see it.
Yeah, you have to click the participants button at the bottom first to bring up the window on the right side. And then at the bottom, you'll see the options to either raise your hand, mute, or whatever.
All right, Ms. Cross, go ahead, please.
All right. Hang
That's
on.
another person.
All right, you want to take the other person first? I have to do something.
Ms. Cross, it's your time right now.
Can you take the other person right now? I have to do something quick.
No, Ms. Cross, it's your turn right now.
All right, Mr. Adonisio. Let's go over the tech. The tech is something you should have talked about before you did the budget. You don't talk about it 2 weeks before the new superintendent's coming in. They've been talking about setting up a tech committee for 10 long years, 10. And now now we got to set up a tech committee. Please, you have to open it up to other parents. You can't have the same 4 parents on every committee and wall. Same thing goes for municipal. So if you're going to open up a tech committee, you need to send it out to all the parents, because this is something that should have been set up a long time ago. And when I'm looking at the numbers, you're looking to spend, you have budgeted $35,000 for Chromebooks. You're going to need a lot more than that. In your budget, you have virtual schooling, $691,000. So somebody please look that up and answer tonight. How much was each item? I had mentioned this when you did the budget presentation. You never went back and gave the numbers. How much is for the summer programs for students? How much is for the digital platforms for instruction? You don't have the breakout anywhere. You have $20,000 to fix Chromebooks. If Mr. Lee can let us know where he's at with that. Can you go over, Mr. Cram, tonight where you're at with your investigation on the trailers. Where are you getting your information from? I have reached out to you to give you information. You have not returned my call. I've emailed you, called you. I hear a lot of parents say they reach out to you and you don't reply. So if you could, I guess you're not on the screen anymore. I don't know. Switching around. If you could go over exactly where you're at with your investigation. Too many strange things going on with the Central School trailers, and now it's 9 months later. Mr. Smythe, when you hired somebody to look for the raw sewage, could you go over exactly what you did? And did you have somebody there from another state agency with you? Was anybody there from the board? Mr. Nasser? Was Mr. Cram? Who was actually there with environmental engineering when they did it? The mercury in the gym floor is disturbing. Strange. That's not one thing I'm allergic to, but I'm actually allergic to mercury. So that really sticks out at me. Why all of a sudden did we just go out and get the testing for the floors? It's got to be something more to it than this, that all of a sudden we just did it. So if you can go over that. Can you put up online all these reports that you had no asbestos, no raw sewage? I'd like to know exactly what they did for those. No lead paint. I'm glad to hear it, but now I'd like to see the reports. I don't want to have to put in Oprahs. Mr. Smythe is endless with his Oprahs that he hasn't returned. A lot of them are regarding himself. So Mr. Smythe's contract should not be renewed until this investigation is completed and reported to the taxpayers, put online. He should not have his contract renewed. Teachers work years without contracts, so he can certainly do it. This attorney, I think the attorney is from Fairhaven, Rumson Fairhaven, where the new super's coming from. So, Mr. Gartz, I know you don't have your picture up ever anymore. Could you just let me know? I think that's the case of where they came from. I mean, I would think Miss Mangan should know that. Like, how does the board not know where the attorney is now coming from? I, for one, I'm glad. We need a new attorney, new auditor, new architect. We need new everybody. Everybody needs to go. So I couldn't be happier that we're going to get a new attorney in here. Get some fresh eyes looking at stuff and get rid of the other people, because they have not done us any good. I have endless emails in with questions. You know, it doesn't matter whether you ask a question, you try and put it worded for an Oprah, nobody gets back to you anyway. Online teaching, there's no way we're going back in September. So you really need to start looking at what you're going to be doing, because I don't think
your time is up.
I don't
Thank you.
think there's any way we're going to be going back in September.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Your
Yeah, I'd
time
like
is
to
up.
just finish my sentence. So I'd like what chance, Mr. Cram, do you think school will be going back in September? Because I think, you know, when are we going to have a definitive answer on this? We can't wait until August and then tell parents that, you know, we're not going back. What is the DOE told you? I know Lisa said we're going in, you know, 3 different directions, but, you know, we need to know when you're going to decide on these directions. I also see Brown & Brown is now the
All right. Thank you, Ms. Frost. Your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you. Okay. We have Clarence, who has his hand raised. Saying, allowed to talk is not available because he is using an older version of Zoom. The panelists who allow him to talk. Is that accurate, Joe?
Can you say that again, Ralph? You're kind of hard to understand there.
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, it's saying he's not allowed to talk because he's using older version of Zoom. It says promote the panelists to allow him to talk. Is that all right?
We could promote him to a panelist and then send him back to an attendee right after
Okay,
to allow him to speak.
all right. See if it worked. Clarence, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Yes, how are you?
Good. Please just state your name for the record.
Clarence Celius.
Okay.
Clarence. Celius, Celius. I'm a 2017 graduate of Wall Township. Any further questions before I begin?
No, please go ahead.
I wanted to thank everybody for the support, and I would like to say thank you to Dr. Henry Cram for allowing access to the school for the parking lot. Sorry for the miscommunication. And I would like to say, as of now, I know you guys are fully aware of the protest and what's going on. I would like to just make a proposal that, you know, we add murals that represent equality in, you know, every Wall Township public school. And I feel like, you know, that's a big thing in this town that, you know, we kind of need to work on together to end discrimination and racism, because it's not a fight for me. I graduated years ago. It's a fight for my sisters and my friends who have brothers and sisters that go to Wall Township School as well. So I feel like the murals, you know, will be a great lesson, and a lesson that wouldn't have to be taught in a class. You know, they just walk past the hallway and they see the mural and they're like, okay, like this is what Wall Township stands behind. And it's, you know what I'm saying, it's something that, you know, you don't have to waste too much time, you know, working on. And we have currently $3,300 into the donation, $3,300 from the community. We have 561 total petitions, and Miss Kendricks of Wall High School actually reached out to me and told me that she would be more than welcome to allow herself and her students to paint the murals themselves, instead of, you know, hiring somebody outside the community to, you know, come in and paint the murals themselves. So she told me that if that, you know, were to go in a motion, that she could help, and the students would like to volunteer to help as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I was CC'd on one of your emails, so I will reach out to you, and maybe we can have a further discussion about a direction that we can go, and you know, with the administration, and see how exactly we can bring this whole idea together and get it to work.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that, for real. And I would like to formally invite every member of the board to the protest June 12th. It will begin at 3 p.m. at the Y School. We'll depart the high school at 3:30 and, you know, get to the fairgrounds around like 4 on the dot. So if you guys would be more than welcome to join, that would mean nothing but the world to me. So thank you guys for your support.
I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I will definitely be working, so I will not be able to be there, but I wish you luck, and certainly, you know, I know your post telling everyone to, you know, to be safe, and you know, so certainly you live in the town, you appreciate the town, you're a Wall graduate, I'm a Wall graduate, Chris Sanfilippo is a Wall graduate, so, you know, you understand, you know, it's a special town. So, you know, we wish you luck in the messaging, and for a great event.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Anisio?
Yes, Mr. Gartz.
May I ask Clarence a few questions?
Sure.
Clarence, are you an artist?
What was the question, sir?
Are you an artist? Do you draw or paint or anything?
I do, but not for fun, you know, occasionally. I was heavy in art in high school.
Just curious to know about where you got the idea to, I think it's a wonderful idea. Just curious if you've seen it anywhere else in schools where murals have been used as tools of influence.
What was the question, sir?
Have you seen the murals that you're recognizing that we should do, which I think is a great idea? Have you seen it anywhere else?
I've seen, there's a post I seen on Instagram. I actually don't remember what account posted it, but there was a line. There was 4 white arms leaning forward, and then there was another 4 on the other side, and it was black hands, and they're coming together as one like this. And it was kind of like something you could walk under, like legit, like walk under, you and your people, and you could literally walk under and walk around it. It's like some type of it's a huge statue. I need to find the post.
I was just looking for ideas. I think it's a great
But
thing to
yeah,
think
that's
about. So
something like that. Mhm. And the Asbury Park too, they also have an artist that they drew. They had white females and black females as well, and they had a bunch of quotes on the side too. That
It sounds good. It sounds good. I will be in touch with you, and we'll see how we can go about doing this, and certainly in the meantime, if you see different things that you think would be something nice that we could do, and certainly something. I mean, I know we have some terrific artists in the district. Something that I can barely paint a wall sometimes. So I look at something they can turn into a masterpiece. So certainly, if you find something that you think would be nice, share it. And we certainly encourage anybody in the community, if they think they see something that would be great for the schools and certainly for a learning experience, please submit it. We'd love to see it.
Thank you so much for the support. Thank you.
No, thank you, Clarence, and best of luck on Friday.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.
Anybody else for public comment? No. Seeing none. Any board members? Anything else? No.
No, well, Ralph, I just want to say that this whole crisis that we're dealing with is a very personal decision for people, and I think one of the common messages that we give in schools is that we are a collective, and sensitivity and support for all of our people in the schools and in the community is paramount. But we also recognize that individuals have personal feelings and comfort levels with what they can and cannot do. It does not mean necessarily, though, that they are giving a position with that action or lack of action. And I don't want that to be judged. And I know that I don't speak as the board, I speak as Andrew Krupa, a member of the board, but I just wanted that to be put out there because it's important that people know that we are a caring community. And I want to thank Dr. Gleason for sending out the email with the resources to the parents because we're not in the schools and it's kind of hard to get that message across when you're not in contact with each other. So people should be aware that something did go out from the schools with resources and all of that kind of thing that would be helpful to a family to discuss the current events that are going on.
Thank you, Andy. Chris Sanfilippo first, sorry.
I just wanted to recognize, the graduation celebrations that were outside the high school. I drove past that a couple times and honked my horn a bunch with all the balloons that were out there and everything else. And I probably saw, the intermediate school bus about 15 times making its way around. So congratulations, to the seniors. I had a couple folks talk to me about how great it was. And so I just wanted to recognize those efforts. And I know that the principals and administrators at the elementary schools are getting ready this week for their congratulations, and all the fifth graders that are going to go to sixth grade. And just wanted to recognize those efforts. And I just wanted to also say that we appreciate that, and we appreciate having to deal with uncertain circumstances and making lemonade out of lemons. So thank you again.
Thanks, Chris. Christine?
Chris stole my thunder. Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to congratulate all the kids. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. I know they've got the awards coming up at the high school this week. but really the high school and the intermediate school really did a beautiful job in making a lot of things special for our kids. And I do know the elementary schools are all doing the same. Elementary schools had some really great virtual field day things that I know that they all enjoyed. So while I know that a lot of us are really kind of feeling a little bit bad about things that maybe we traditionally have, I think people have gotten really creative, and I really admire what they've done. And you've seen a lot of people go the extra mile. I mean, maybe the extra 10. So I'm really proud of what everybody's been able to do, because at the end of the day, it really is about the kids. And I think they're getting a kick out of a lot of things that are going on. So I wish everybody the best of luck as they continue to do all this stuff. And we look forward to some good stuff in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, our staff did an incredible job with the graduations, and thank you to Dr. Cram for reaching out to Dr. Richens and up the food chain to make that happen, because if he didn't do that, it wouldn't have happened. So it was really a very nice thing that happened. And I also drove by a couple times and you know, tooted the horn a little bit. So it was nice to see that. And we, you know, everybody was distanced. And you know, now with some of these things being dropped, these maybe we'll actually be able to have a in-person graduation to kind of close out the year for these students. So it's a good thing. Dr. Graham, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that I mean, we were only taking the pictures for the virtual graduation that's going to take place on the 16th. So you'll have to tune in for both of those ceremonies. I think the intermediate school is going at 3 o'clock and the high school is going at 6. And of course, after that, we can move on to planning an in-person graduation sometime in July.
Sounds good. Anybody else? Anything?
Yes, Mr. Anizio, you may want to announce that. Good segue that the presentation is the 16th, so the Board of Education meeting is being moved to the following Tuesday on the 23rd.
That is correct. Thank you for that.
And that'll be advertised in this Thursday's CoStar. But being that it's announced at tonight's meeting, that suffices for the notice. But the meeting is being postponed for the week.
Thank you. All right. So, no other business. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
Motion, Aaron. Second, Chris. All in favor? Aye. All right. Everyone have a good night. Everyone be safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.